Chapter 316. Thank you. Ce was delighted to hear the woman's misunderstanding. Before Yunjian could speak, he took over for her and pulled Yunjian to the seat the woman had vacated, letting Yunjian carry Xiao Yunju. Ce's heartwarming gesture made the woman exclaim, "Ah, it's so good to be young." Yunjian's cheeks flushed, but she accepted the woman's kindness without explaining anything. She thought that she could squeeze in with the crowd, but Xiao Yunju was small and it was difficult for him to stand in the crowded bus. If he was not careful, he might bump into something. Therefore Yunjian accepted the woman's kindness and thanked her. Xiao Yunju was being carried in Yunjian's arms obediently. He blinked his large eyes, his long eyelashes fluttering. His thin and frail body did not look like an 8-year-old child. Xiao Yunju looked more childish and was much shorter than his peers. It was probably because this body had not been well nourished in the past that he looked like he was 4 or 5 years old at most. Yunjian was dressed more maturely than usual today, which was a stark contrast to her usual 15 or 16-year-old face. That was why the woman had misunderstood that Yunjian was Yunjian's child. After all, there were girls who became mothers at such a young age. It was fortunate that Qingshan City was not far from Longmen City. Qingyu, Qinsini, and Ce, who did not have seats, only stood for about 45 minutes before they reached the final stop. When they reached the final stop, they took the second bus and arrived at the World Trade Center, which was also the entrance of the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center located in Qingshan City had a daily turnover of $10 million. This undoubtedly made the World Trade Center the most famous shopping mall in the area. Yunjian got off the second bus and walked in front holding Xiao Yunju's hand. Ce followed beside her. Qingyu and Qinsini held hands as they were dazed by the dazzling array of merchandise. They had no idea where they had run off to. Qingyu had been through a lot, but she still had the innocent heart of a young girl. Moreover, she was with her new friend, Qinsini. Both of them looked around and walked away quickly. Before Qingyu and Qinsini walked away, however, they set a meeting place with Yunjian. Yunjian then grabbed Xiao Yunju's hand and went shopping on the menswear street. The entire street was filled with menswear, and the children's wear that was suitable for Xiao Yunju was on this street as well. Yunjian grabbed Xiao Yunju's hand and was about to step into a store that sold children's wear with Ce when a surprised voice came from the side. "It's you?" The surprised male voice made Yunjian's eyelids twitch. It was then that Yunjian recognized the owner of the ecstatic voice. Yunjian frowned slightly when she saw the person but did not pay attention to him right away. The person thought that Yunjian did not remember him. He was a little disappointed but also surprised. "Don't you remember me? I'm Qinyan. We met last time at Weiwu Mountain." Of course, it was not that Yunjian did not remember him, but she did not want to bother with him. She didn't expect to meet someone she had met before here. Yunjian replied faintly. Ce stood aside and looked at the man who had appeared out of nowhere. A glint flashed across his eagle-like eyes. Qinyan did not expect to meet the girl he had been thinking about last time here. He did not even notice Ce, who was standing beside Yunjian, and introduced himself in a friendlier manner to Yunjian. Chapter 317. Yunjian didn't answer him. Even though Yunjian didn't answer, Qinyan wasn't disheartened. When he first saw Yunjian at Weiwu Mountain, Qinyan felt that his spring had arrived. Yunjian's graceful figure and her beautiful and delicate face had always been deeply imprinted in Qinyan's heart. It felt as if a small sapling had suddenly sprouted when it met the sun. Qinyan had a few girlfriends before, so he quickly realized that he had fallen in love with Yunjian at first sight. However, he didn't expect to meet her here after they parted that day. This made Qinyan feel that they were definitely fated to meet. He decided that he would definitely woo her. Qinyan suddenly stretched out his hand to grab Yunjian's small hand as he muttered, "It's fate that brought us together. I'm not a bad person. It means that we are fated to meet each other. Let's go, I'll show you around." However, before Qinyan's hand could even touch a strand of Yunjian's hair, Yunjian was pulled into Ce's embrace. Ce frowned. If that gaze could kill, Qinyan would have died 1,000,000 times over. "Don't touch my woman." Ce immediately declared his sovereignty. Yunjian was pulled into his embrace. She only felt that she was covered by a warm chest and her hand was holding onto the confused Xiao Yunju. "What? Your woman?" Qinyan didn't notice Ce at first, but now, even if he was blind, he should have sensed Ce's presence. Ce was about half a head taller than Qinyan, so Qinyan had to look up to meet Ce's eyes. When Qinyan heard Ce say that Yunjian was his woman, his eyelids twitched and he looked disappointed. "Sister, what did brother Ce mean when he said that you're his woman? Does that mean that sister will be able to accompany brother Ce forever?" Then Xiaozhu also wants big sister to become Xiaozhu's woman, okay? Xiao Yunju looked at them talking. He rubbed his head as if he was thinking for a long time before saying these words. Cough. Yunjian was almost frightened by Xiao Yunju's innocent words. She broke free from Siyi's embrace and squatted down to rub Xiao Yunju's head. Finally she stood up and slapped Siyi's hand. Don't talk nonsense. With Yunjian's pat, Siyi felt a surge of warmth in his heart. He smiled slightly and reached out to grab Yunjian's slender hands, interlocking their fingers. When Qinyan saw Siyi holding Yunjian's hand, his expression turned slightly ugly. However, when he thought about how Yunjian had said to Siyi, "Don't talk nonsense," his disappointed expression immediately recovered. It seemed like this guy's feelings for Yunjian were one-sided, but Yunjian didn't like him. That must be it, Qinyan thought to himself. Although this guy was handsome and had good features, he admitted that he couldn't compare to him. But what if they were to compete in strength? Could this guy compare to him, who was the vice president of the school's taekwondo club and had won countless championships in various taekwondo, wushu, sanda, and other activities? So what if he was good-looking? He was still a gigolo. How could he be as manly as him? When he thought of this, Qinyan started scolding Siyi. Didn't you realize that she doesn't like you? You should know your place. If you're a man, you shouldn't touch a girl like this. As Qinyan spoke, he reached out to pat Siyi's hand that was holding Yunjian's hand. In Qinyan's opinion, Siyi was at most a gigolo. So what if he was handsome? Chapter 318. Qinyan thought about it and decided to do it. He reached out his hand and wanted to slap Siyi's hand away from Yunjian's. He wanted to use this opportunity to throw Siyi to the ground using taekwondo moves. If he presented himself in such a cool manner in front of Yunjian, she would definitely think that he was especially manly. Just as Qinyan was about to grab Siyi smugly and throw him to the ground in front of all the passers-by, Siyi, a fair and slender hand with a black pocket watch on the wrist, seemed to know what he was going to do in the next second. That well-defined hand grabbed Qinyan's elbow a few steps faster than him. Siyi reached out and grabbed Qinyan's elbow. His other hand that was holding Yunjian's hand didn't move. When his other hand touched Qinyan's hand, he twisted Qinyan's elbow joint. Kacha, kacha, kacha. The sound of bones breaking could be heard one after another. In the next second, Qinyan's howl resounded through the sky. Below Qinyan's elbow, all the bones in his hand were dislocated by Siyi. The heart-wrenching pain spread through Qinyan's elbow. His wailing and howling attracted the attention of passers-by. Apart from the intense pain from his elbow, Qinyan was also suffering from immense fear in his heart. She had thought that Siyi was a pretty boy, a useless piece of trash with a handsome face but no ability. However, when Siyi attacked just now, his speed was so fast that he couldn't even see it with his naked eye. Was that even a human speed? Qinyan swore that even the head coach of the International Taekwondo Club, whom he had the honor of meeting, wasn't as good as Siyi. This was the first time Qinyan had experienced the feeling of living a life worse than death. At this moment, Siyi had already retracted his hand. One of his hands was still holding on to Yunjian, while the other hand that had touched Qinyan took out a piece of tissue from his pocket. He wiped the hand that had touched Qinyan with the tissue, then threw the tissue into the air. The tissue flew in an arc in the air for a while before it was thrown accurately into a circular trash can more than 10 meters away from them. The surrounding people who saw this opened their mouths wide and stared dumbfoundedly at the tall figure. A handsome man who was 185 meters tall with short black hair and dressed in simple black stood in the middle. His big palm was still holding the small hand of a young girl. He looked at Qinyan, whose elbow had been dislocated, wantonly and spat out a domineering and elegant word between his thin lips. Get lost. Some people were born with the air of a king. Siyi was undoubtedly one of them, and he was one of the best among them. Siyi was now fuming with anger. How could a piece of trash like him taint his woman? Yunjian pursed her lips and covered Xiao Yunju's eyes to prevent him from seeing this scene. She personally didn't like Qinyan very much. Hence, she didn't intend to pay any attention to him. Qinyan thought that she and Siyi didn't know what he was doing, but how could she and Siyi not be willing to come out? Let's go. Yunjian turned to Siyi and said. However, Siyi's face was still gloomy. He grabbed Yunjian's hand and left. At the same time, he pulled Yunjian to a secluded corner where Xiao Yunju stood in front of Yunjian. Siyi leaned over Yunjian. He pressed Yunjian against the wall and said with a trace of anger, "You can only be mine." Chapter 319. Yunjian's heart raced. She felt like her heart was pounding wildly in her chest. She did not understand why Siyi was suddenly angry, but she covered Xiao Yunju's eyes with one hand and held Siyi's head with the other, responding to his kiss for the first time. Everything else aside, she had feelings for Siyi. The fluttering of her maiden's heart told her that she had feelings for him that were different from others. Both of them kissed until they were almost out of breath before Siyi let go of Yunjian. Xiao Yunju's eyes were covered throughout the entire process. Xiao Yunju, however, felt the odd atmosphere as well. He blinked his big eyes and looked up to ask Yunjian, "Jejia, why did you cover Xiao Zhu's eyes? Are you and Siyi going to play hide-and-seek with Xiao Zhu?" Children's innocence was the most interesting but also the most ignorant. Yunjian rubbed Xiao Yunju's head and turned to glare at Siyi with a hint of complaint. "Let's go. Jejia will buy you new clothes." Yunjian held Xiao Yunju's hand and walked ahead first. Siyi had both hands in his pockets. Watching Yunjian walk ahead, he raised a handsome brow and followed her. By the time Yunjian bought a few new warm clothes for Xiao Yunju, Qingyu and Qinsini had already bought a bunch of things and were waiting for Yunjian, Siyi and Xiao Yunju at the agreed spot. They had been shopping for the entire morning and had lunch near the World Trade Center before Yunjian and the rest went home. The public transport from Qingshan City back to Longmen City was not as crowded as the public transport from Longmen City to Qingshan City. It was probably due to Qingshan City's outstanding transportation and trade. In addition, as the provincial capital of Zhe Province, Qingshan City's economic conditions were at the forefront of country Z. Therefore, there were more people going to Qingshan City. As for the bus back to Longmen City, it was enough for one person to take 2 seats. After the previous incident, Yunjian had gradually taken Siyi to heart. She also understood her own feelings. Her feelings for Siyi were different from the feelings she had for Qin Yiru and her brother Yunyi. On the weekend night, Yunjian carried her school bag and went to school as usual. But before she could walk out of the house, she was blocked by a tall figure. Siyi had his hands in his pockets. One of his legs was slightly curled up as he leaned against the wall, waiting for her. "I'm going away for a while. If you need my help in the kosher mercenaries, you can contact Shuang anytime." Siyi went up to rub Yunjian's head when he saw her walking over. As he spoke, his eyes stared straight at her. The indulgence in his words was not concealed at all. "Be careful," Yunjian could not help reminding him. Siyi was stunned. The corners of his handsome lips curled into a handsome smile. She was concerned about him. Carrying her school bag, Yunjian passed by a fork in the corner after she came out of her house. It was a secluded alley. At this moment, her eyes suddenly flickered. Not long after, a group of more than 10 people came from all directions and surrounded Yunjian. This group of people were all dressed in black, which made people involuntarily think of gangsters. A coquettishly dressed woman walked over from behind Yunjian while leaning against a plump man. Yunjian's eyes flickered as she took a good look at the woman's face. The woman who had changed her appearance was none other than Qin Yubing, who had tried to harm her brother Yunyi some time ago. Qin Yubing looked completely different now. She had heavy makeup on her face as she snuggled in the man's arms who was in his 40s and old enough to be her father. Chapter 320. It had only been a few days and Qin Yubing had changed so drastically. Moreover, she was currently nestled in the arms of a man in his 40s. Yunjian felt goosebumps rising all over her body at the sight alone. However, she never showed her feelings on her face. Yunjian maintained her usual nonchalant expression as she stared at Qin Yubing. Qin Yubing was noticeably thinner than before. More importantly, she had taken off her student uniform and put on a very revealing off-shoulder top. She even wore a pair of high heels. The biggest change was her face. Her originally pretty face was now covered with makeup, and her face was now unrecognizable. The face covered in heavy makeup was currently staring at Yunjian with a twisted expression. She looked like she wanted to cut Yunjian into 1,000 pieces. "Kill me?" Yunjian asked flippantly. Looking at the fat man beside Qin Yubing, she could roughly guess what Qin Yubing had done. In fact, what Qin Yubing had done was not far from Yunjian's guess. The aphrodisiac that Qin Yubing had been drugged with last time was developed by Qinyu. However, those who were drugged with it would lose consciousness for a short period of time and feel waves of heat flowing through their bodies. If the drugged person did not have a strong will, they would strip themselves naked in no time. As for what Qin Yubing had done afterward, Yunjian had no idea. However, looking at how Qin Yubing was nestled in the man who was old enough to be her father, it was not hard to tell that she had latched onto this man's coattails. "Yunjian, do you think you can do whatever you want in Longmen City just because you have some skills? I'm telling you, Qin Yubing, won't let you go even if I become a ghost." Qin Yubing's twisted smile was menacing. No one knew what she had gone through. After she woke up, she was lying naked on the road for everyone to see. She was ruined. Her future was ruined. However, Chen Yubing swore that she would take revenge on Yun Jian. In spite of it, Chen Yubing knew that Yun Jian had some skills. Last time, the yellow-haired man who wanted to deal with Yun Yi was defeated by Yun Jian. This time, Chen Yubing was hugging the fat middle-aged man she was snuggling against. He was a gangster. He was different from the weak yellow-haired guy from before. The middle-aged man was a gangster and the second in command of the Nine Valleys Gang, the second largest mafia group in Longmen City. People in the underworld called him Xiong Eru. Chen Yubing was determined to go against Yun Jian to the end. She was already ruined, so she was willing to give herself to Xiong Eru. This time, she had asked Xiong Eru to lead a group of people to surround Yun Jian in order to take revenge for what Yun Jian had done to her. In Chen Yubing's opinion, she hated Yun Jian so much that she was willing to exchange her body for power to deal with Yun Jian. Brother Xiong, she's the one who bullied me. You must avenge me. Chen Yubing said as she pointed her finger at Yun Jian. Before she could finish, however, the atmosphere changed. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Not long after, a group of people rushed in from the front and back of the alley. A round-looking man led a group of men with guns over. The man went to Yun Jian and bowed respectfully at a 90 degrees angle to Yun Jian, saying respectfully, "Miss Yun, our boss invites you." Yun Jian could tell at a glance that the man was Su Ziqian's subordinate and also a higher-up in Longmen City's top mafia group, Dragon Head Gang. When Xiong Eru, who was called Brother Xiong, saw this man and his group, his eyes widened, and there was a trace of indescribable fear in his eyes. He was the second in command of the Nine Valleys Gang, but the Nine Valleys Gang, the second largest mafia group in Longmen City, dared not offend people from the top mafia group, Dragon Head Gang. His temporary bed partner, Chen Yubing, who was just an ordinary junior high school girl whom he wanted to surround, Yun Jian, could command such respect from Dragon Head Gang's higher-ups. Chapter 321. The round-looking man was the underling of Longmen City's mafia boss, Su Ziqian. He was also a high-ranking member of Dragon Head Gang, Sun Jingwei. Yun Jian knew him. She had interacted with many of Dragon Head Gang's high-ranking members when she fought for Su Ziqian in the tournament. Since her victory in the tournament, Su Ziqian and the high-ranking members of Dragon Head Gang respected her even more. Yun Jian nodded softly, agreeing to Sun Jingwei's request. Su Ziqian wanted to see her. Even though Su Ziqian hadn't contacted her since the last challenge tournament, he was still the father of her brother's best friend. Moreover, Su Ziqian was also a member of the Kosha mercenaries. His position was low, but she was not one to put on airs. "Miss Yun, please." Sun Jingwei gestured for permission, intending to let Yun Jian go first. Just as Yun Jian took a step forward, Chen Yubing's vengeful voice rang again. "Wait. Yun Jian, don't think you can leave so easily." Chen Yubing was a little afraid of Sun Jingwei and his men with guns, but she had heard Xiong Eru bragging so much when she had sex with him that she thought he was a fearless person in Longmen City. Moreover, Xiong Eru had told Chen Yubing that he would seek justice from Yun Jian for her before they came. How could Chen Yubing sit still when she saw that Yun Jian was leaving? She shouted angrily at once. "Yun Jian, do you think it'll work just because you found a helper? Brother Xiong will definitely kill you for me." Chen Yubing snuggled up to Xiong Eru. Her round breasts were almost touching Xiong Eru's chest. A teenage girl with a man old enough to be her father. It was an unflattering sight. "Isn't that right, Brother Xiong?" Chen Yubing, on the other hand, seemed to want Xiong Eru's guarantee. She leaned closer to Xiong Eru. To Chen Yubing, she had sacrificed her body to make a deal with Xiong Eru in order to take revenge on Yun Jian, who had ruined her reputation. She did not believe that she could not destroy Yun Jian. Listening to Chen Yubing's confident words and looking at how she leaned on the man, Yun Jian could not help scoffing with a small smile. "What are you laughing at? Brother Xiong, she's bullying me. You have to help me. You said you'll help me." In bed, Brother Xiong had promised her that he would help her get rid of Yun Jian, whom she hated the most. This was why Chen Yubing had been serving Xiong Eru with all her hearts. Otherwise, how could a young girl like Chen Yubing be willing to face a man who was as old as her father every day? She wasn't a fool, so how could she be willing to do that? "Xiong Eru, Miss Yun is an honored guest of our Dragon Head Gang. She's someone that even our boss has to respect. Our boss said that whoever dares to touch Miss Yun in Longmen City will be going against Dragon Head Gang." Sun Jingwei obviously knew Xiong Eru. He spoke to Xiong Eru with a threatening tone. Everyone knew that Dragon Head Gang was the top mafia group in Longmen City, while the Nine Valleys Gang could only be ranked second. Even the Nine Valleys gang's boss dared not go against Dragon Head Gang, let alone Xiong Eru. Chapter 322. When Xiong Eru and Qin Yubing were having S*X, he had indeed bragged about his abilities and even boasted that there was no one in Longmen City that he could not touch. Qin Yubing was vengeful and was tricked by Xiong Eru. Not only did she offer her body to him, she was also slapped in return. Qin Yubing, who was slapped to the ground by Xiong Eru, had mixed feelings. Holding the side of her face that was slapped, her small eyes narrowed. "Big brother Xiong, why you didn't keep your word? You promised me." Qin Yubing didn't realize that something was wrong. She stared at Xiong Eru with her eyes wide open. Her face was filled with disbelief and malevolence. King Hell, I almost ruined my future because of you. The person you King offended is someone protected by Dragon Head Gang's boss, and you dare ask me to avenge you? Xiong Eru slapped Qin Yubing in front of Yun Jian and Sun Jingwei. Xiong Eru was definitely a despicable person. The fact that he could lay his hands on the woman in his arms earlier proved that he was not a good person. In spite of it, Xiong Eru was sly and cunning. He could think of ways to resolve problems in time. This was the most important skill in the underworld. King B TC. How dare you order me around? CK your whole family. Without needing Yun Jian to do anything, Xiong Eru picked up Qin Yubing's head and messed up her hair before slamming it to the ground. It was as if he was treating a prisoner. He did not treat Qin Yubing as a human being at all. Qin Yubing felt like a knife was being twisted in her heart. She cried out in pain, but her mouth opened and closed in the end, unable to utter a single word. In the end, Qin Yubing's head was slammed to the ground by Xiong Eru until she bled and fainted completely. Qin Yubing, who was originally bright and beautiful, seemed to have completely fallen into a quagmire. She was as silent as death. Xiong Eru didn't even look at Qin Yubing, who had once been in love with him. He walked over with a smile, stood in front of Sun Jingwei and said to Yun Jian in a flattering tone, "I was blind just now and offended you. I've already taught this shameless woman a lesson. I hope the two of you can forgive me." Xiong Eru didn't have any other skills, but he was very good at flattering people. This was especially true for Qin Yubing. After all, Qin Yubing was a woman who had been with him for a period of time. In the end, because of Qin Yubing, Xiong Eru had almost harmed him. However, Xiong Eru had used the most direct method to make up for what he had almost done wrong. Judging from his personality, Xiong Eru wasn't a pushover. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She would not sympathize with Qin Yubing. Qin Yubing was purely reaping what she had sown. She deserved this retribution. Yun Jian ignored Xiong Eru and didn't look at the unconscious Qin Yubing. She turned around and left with Sun Jingwei. This was the way of the world. If one wasn't strong, especially a woman, and wanted to rely on a man to get to the top, what awaited her could be a vicious beating or a cruel betrayal at any time. And Qin Yubing was undoubtedly one of them. Yun Jian didn't go to the evening self-study session. She took a car with Sun Jingwei and soon arrived at the headquarters of the Dragon Head Gang, in front of a decent-looking tall building. Chapter 323. The higher-ups of Dragon Head Gang were having a meeting in the conference room. Once Yun Jian followed Sun Jingwei inside, all the higher-ups in Dragon Head Gang stood up at once. Although no one knew who Yun Jian was, no one could forget Yun Jian's stunning performance in the challenge tournament. Even the higher-ups who had a particular opinion of Yun Jian had to keep quiet when they saw Yun Jian. "Miss Yun, you're here." Standing among the higher-ups, Su Zetian, who was dressed formally, did not look old. He walked toward Yun Jian, his respect for Yun Jian evident from his solemn expression. "Why did you send someone to look for me?" Yun Jian did not like to beat around the bush, going straight to the point. Su Zetian hadn't looked for her since the last challenge tournament. In fact, Yun Jian was not close to him, but they bumped into each other often. She often saw her brother Yun Yi and Su Haokol playing together. Su Haokol was Su Zetian's son, so it was only natural that they would bump into each other when they walked together. "Miss Yun, it's like this," Su Zetian said. He paused for a moment before continuing. "We, Dragon Head Gang, are the top mafia group in Longmen City and also the mafia representative of Longmen City. In fact, a national mafia tea party will be held in the underworld a few days later. The organized mafia group will invite the mafia bosses from all over the country to attend the tea party along with their experts. The nationwide mafia tea party was, to put it bluntly, a competition of skills. It was a gathering where all the major gangs sent their experts to learn from each other. There'll also be a ranking of the experts from all the major provinces and cities participating in the mafia group's strength. Therefore, on behalf of our Dragon Head Gang, I sincerely hope that you can join our Dragon Head Gang and participate in this tea party as one of our experts. Su Ziqian said sincerely, but at the same time he stared at Yun Jian without blinking. To put it bluntly, the reason why Su Ziqian asked Sun Jingwei to invite Yun Jian over was to invite her to join the Dragon Head Gang. Secondly, he wanted her to attend the tea party organized by all the gangs in the country as a member of Dragon Head Gang. Okay. After hearing Su Ziqian's words, Yun Jian wasn't in a hurry to agree. She pursed her lips and raised her eyebrows. She then asked Su Ziqian in a probing tone, "Then what are the benefits?" If he wanted her to help him attend such a gathering, he would naturally want some benefits. As the saying goes, one should not receive a reward for nothing. Even if Su Ziqian was a member of the kosher mercenaries, Yun Jian would treat him equally. As long as Miss Yun agrees, then I, Su Ziqian, will agree to any request you make. Su Ziqian said boldly. This was probably the biggest promise that a mafia boss of a city could make. Although Su Ziqian was only a mafia boss in a small Longmen city, the area of influence he had was not small. There were thousands of people in Dragon Head Gang. It was a considerable force. Yun Jian raised her eyebrows and smirked. Pressing her red lips together, she asked softly, "What if I want the entire Dragon Head Gang? Will you give it to me?" Once she said that, not only was Su Ziqian stunned, everyone else's eyelids twitched. What a bold claim. She wanted the entire Dragon Head Gang? Even if she won the challenge tournament and displayed her extraordinary ability, she was still a Dragon Head Gang member. Chapter 324. You're too arrogant, young lady. We sincerely invited you to join us because we respect you as a powerhouse. I didn't expect you to be so bold as to ask for more. One of the Dragon Head Gang's higher-ups shouted at Yun Jian. Not long after, some of the higher-ups followed suit and spoke to Yun Jian. To the audience, Yun Jian had won the previous match and crippled the boastful foreigner, which was quite satisfying to them, but it was not the same for Yun Jian. However, Su Ziqian had sincerely invited her to join Dragon Head Gang this time. Yet, Yun Jian did not appreciate the gesture. She had actually raised conditions and boasted that she wanted to replace Su Ziqian as the mafia boss and take over the entire Dragon Head Gang. Compared to the rage of the other higher-ups, Su Ziqian was much calmer. He looked at Yun Jian with a slight frown. Yun Jian, on the other hand, was not flustered. She even walked leisurely to an empty seat not far away and sat down, crossing one leg over the other. The expression on her face was very relaxed, and she did not feel the slightest bit strange when the higher-ups present suddenly turned hostile and said that she did not know what was good for her. When the higher-ups were done scolding her, Yun Jian turned to look at them with a pair of round eyes and asked softly with a wink, "Thank you for the scolding. Let's sit down and have some tea first." Once they heard Yun Jian, their eyes bulged again. A few of the higher-ups were even glaring, looking like they were choked by Yun Jian's frivolous words. Compared to the higher-ups, Su Ziqian was much calmer. He seemed to have sensed something as he stood where he was without saying a word. It was only when the other higher-ups had calmed down that Su Ziqian walked to Yun Jian. "Miss Yun, please enlighten us." Su Ziqian was already standing in front of Yun Jian, maintaining his respectful demeanor. Even Yun Jian could not help narrowing her eyes at his demeanor. Su Ziqian was indeed the top mafia boss of Longmen City. His value was incomparable to the other higher-ups. Yun Jian stretched out her hand and tapped the long conference table with her finger. Then she stood up and turned to look at Su Ziqian. "You're undoubtedly the mafia boss of Longmen City now. No one can take your position away from you. It's true that you're as stable as a mountain, but don't you want to go one step further and become the mafia boss of the entire Zhe province and even the entire country?" Su Ziqian was a mafia boss, but his influence was limited to Longmen City. It could be said that he was nothing outside of Longmen City. Not only did Yun Jian's words make Su Ziqian's heart skip a beat, but the higher-ups of Dragon Head Gang could not help feeling alarmed as well. Everyone was content with the status quo. They had thought about how to strengthen their position in Longmen City, but no one had thought about it and no one dared to think about it. Dragon Head Gang was deeply rooted in Longmen City. Could they move to Zhe province one day? Becoming the #1 mafia in Zhe province. Leave Dragon Head Gang to me. I promise to make Dragon Head Gang the top mafia in Country Z. Otherwise I, Yun Jian, will write my name backwards. Yun Jian said abruptly, slamming the table as she stood up. For some reason, when the group heard Yun Jian's words again, they were not as resistant as they were in the beginning. Yes, everyone wanted to move forward. Now, it was as if Yun Jian had some kind of magical power. What she said made everyone's heart skip a beat. But at the same time, everyone was filled with a surge of hot blood. Chapter 325. When Su Ziqian heard this, he immediately felt energized. Dragon Head Gang was actually a gang that Su Ziqian had founded with his brothers. Dragon Head Gang was the culmination of half his life's effort and the expectations of all the higher-ups. It was not that Su Ziqian had not thought about leading his brothers out of the tiny Longmen city and becoming the top gang in Jia province or even Country Z. However, he had never dared to do it because he did not have the capability nor the capability. Although he was a member of the Kosha mercenaries, Su Ziqian was merely a nobody among the Kosha mercenaries. In spite of it, his heart that had been dormant for a long time finally surged again after he heard Yun Jian's words. What makes you so sure that you can do it? It has been decades since our boss led us to establish the Dragon Head Gang. In these decades, even a group of old men like us, who are hundreds of times more experienced than you, could not be so frivolous as to say such words. What makes you think that you can lead our brothers in the Dragon Head Gang to become the top gang in Z country? One of the higher-ups pointed out the problem once again. It did not mean that they would hand the gang over to Yun Jian just because she had stirred their blood with what she said just now. This was the result of half their life's effort and hard work to create what they had today. What made her think so? What made her think that they would hand Dragon Head Gang over to her just because she had said something that made everyone's blood boil? None of them were fools. All of them had the ability to distinguish right from wrong. Because I'm better than all of you. Because I'm the director of new crews. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and declared brashly, not mincing her words at all. What? New Cruise's director? After Yun Jian's words, someone was finally shocked and cried out. New Cruise was now a household name in Longmen City. It was a new company that had only been around for less than half a year, but it had achieved astounding results in less than half a year. Not long ago, the car show that New Cruise had helped organize was the largest car show that had never been heard of in the country. 3 limited edition supercars were displayed at the show. Which large-scale auto show could compete with it? Hence, New Cruise's name shot to fame overnight, not only in Longmen City but also in the national car exhibition scene. Moreover, New Cruise's sales of cars had reached a climax. It was no exaggeration to say that New Cruise had become a pioneer that led the advancement of the times. It took less than half a year for New Cruise to rise to this day. Now Yun Jian, who claimed to be New Cruise's director, was standing in front of everyone. At this moment, it wasn't just the higher-ups of the Dragon Head Gang. Even Su Ziqian was looking at the smiling girl in front of them in horror. They saw Yun Jian standing in front of the crowd. Her smile was very sweet, and within that faint smile, there was an aura that made everyone have no choice but to submit to her. Perhaps she could really lead Dragon Head Gang out of Longmen City and into Jia province, or even become the top gang in Country Z. Su Ziqian clenched his fists, gritted his teeth and said resolutely to Yun Jian, "Fine. Dragon Head Gang is yours from now on." Su Ziqian's decision was for the sake of his brothers in the gang. Chapter 326. Su Ziqian was a good leader. From the time he led his brothers to establish Dragon Head Gang until now, he had always wished to lead them out of Longmen City. It was a wish that Su Ziqian had always wanted, but he was incapable of making it happen. He had only wanted to invite Yun Jian to join Dragon Head Gang today but did not expect her to claim that she would take his place. As it turned out, Yun Jian's words struck a chord in Su Ziqian's heart. His brothers had been with him for so many years but they were still lingering in Longmen City. Su Ziqian had long thought that if someone stronger than him were to lead them out of Longmen City one day, he would have to give up his position as Dragon Head Gang's boss immediately, even if he had to give up everything. Today this person had appeared. Perhaps Yun Jian's age did not match her skills. It sounded impossible for her to take over Dragon Head Gang's position. However, Yun Jian was New Cruise's director. Yes, this was true because Su Ziqian had seen Yun Jian's performance at the auto show that day. How could Yun Jian be an ordinary person when she could make New Cruise, which was founded less than half a year ago, rise so quickly and become a renowned company in Longmen City and even the country as a director? Therefore, Su Ziqian agreed to take a gamble. Boss. Boss. No. The cries of Dragon Head Gang's higher-ups rang. Su Ziqian closed his eyes and pondered for a long time before he gestured for everyone to quiet down. Say no more. I've already made up my mind. Su Ziqian was a man who could let go of things easily. He waved his hand to signal for everyone to stop talking. Miss Yun, I'll hand Dragon Head Gang over to you. Su Ziqian then turned to look at Yun Jian and expressed his opinion. Dragon Head Gang is the culmination of half of my life's work, so I hope you can manage the gang well. If possible, I hope you can lead my brothers out of Longmen City on my behalf. This was Su Ziqian's plan. Yun Jian nodded and lifted her head slightly to look at Su Ziqian before she turned to scan the crowd with a rare solemn gaze. Dragonhead Gang, your boss has been handed over to me. In that case, listen to me carefully. My gang doesn't allow any traitors or trash who ask for protection fees from the common people. If I find them, they will be killed without mercy. In addition, Dragonhead Gang will be renamed Falcon Hall from now on, but your boss will still be the one in charge of its management. In other words, Yun Jian was just acting as a hands-off boss. In the future, the management and arrangements of the gang would be left to Su Ziqian. Everyone was shocked when they heard Yun Jian's decision, especially Su Ziqian. Normally, a new boss would kick the old boss out of the gang. However, Yun Jian was different. Not only did she not do that, but she also let Su Ziqian continue to take over the gang's affairs. In that case, other than Yun Jian, who was now the boss in name, everything else was still the same as before. At this moment, the group of higher-ups instantly calmed down, and none of them made a fuss. After all, it was the best of both worlds. All of them wanted their gang to leave Longmen City, but they did not want Su Ziqian to leave the gang. Logically speaking, a new boss would not keep the old boss, but Yun Jian was the complete opposite. Chapter 327. Happy working with you. Su Ziqian shook his hand. It was only then that he put his hand down. Handing Dragonhead Gang over to Yun Jian was something he had never thought of. Since he had handed the gang over to Yun Jian, he had considered everything. Similarly, Su Ziqian naturally wouldn't regret it. After Yun Jian took over Dragonhead Gang and renamed it Falcon Hall, she overhauled Falcon Hall. Although Yun Jian had taken over Dragonhead Gang, the original higher-ups of Dragonhead Gang treated her as their boss wholeheartedly because she had kept Su Ziqian and allowed him to continue all his previous work. Yun Jian was actually disdainful to take over a mere Dragonhead Gang, which was the current Falcon Hall. However, her family was in Longmen City and so was her mother. It was only a matter of time before she would come into contact with the secret fights of her past life. An additional force meant an additional guarantee for her mother, brothers, and mother in Longmen City. Yun Jian had made the mistake of her past life once. She would not allow others to take advantage of her weakness again. A few days later, it was the tea party where all the gangs in the country gathered. Yun Jian was free these days. She used the free time to train Zhang Xiaofeng. Zhang Xiaofeng's accuracy in throwing chopsticks had improved tremendously as well. After all, Zhang Xiaofeng was Yun Jian's first disciple. She would feel bad if she did not train him harder. On the weekend, Yun Jian purposely asked Zhang Xiaofeng out early in the morning. Yun Jian woke up at 4 in the morning. The sky was still dark and the surroundings were pitch black. Before Yun Jian stepped out of the house, she was stopped by Yun Yi, who had returned home this week. Xiao Jian. Yun Yi was wearing a casual white t-shirt. He was dressed casually and only had a pair of loose pants on his lower body. Brother, why are you up so early today? Yun Jian squatted down and tied her shoelaces before standing up. Xiao Jian, are you going to train? Yun Yi had already put on his white sports shoes. He asked Yun Jian and strode towards Yun Jian. Yun Jian nodded and said, yes, brother. She had never intended to hide the fact that she was exercising from Yun Yi. Qin Yuru already knew that she had joined the special forces, and so did her brother Yun Yi. Xiao Jian, I know you've joined the special forces and there are plenty of ways to train your skills. I know I'm not as good as you, but I don't want to stand behind you for everything in the future. I want you to know that I've got your back. So, Xiao Jian, I want to train with you guys in the future, is that okay? Yun Yi blurted out. Every time something happened, it was his younger sister who stood up for him. Yun Yi was a man and he wanted to be strong too. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. She knew that her brother was asking her to train him. She was already worried about her brother and mother, Qin Yuru, when she was not around in the future. If Yun Yi wanted to be strong, she was naturally willing to agree. Of course. Yun Jian's lips curled up into a smile. Since they were going to train, she would make her brother a powerhouse. She could prevent him from becoming a powerful killing machine, but at least dealing with third-rate assassins was her minimum requirement for her brother and Zhang Xiaofeng. Chapter 328. The result of Yun Yi joining as Yun Jian's training partner was to practice throwing chopsticks with Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun Jian after their morning run. Zhang Xiaofeng had been practicing throwing chopsticks for quite some time now. Even if he were to place an empty beer bottle tens of meters away, he would still be able to throw it accurately. Master's brother. You're practicing with me under master. According to the rule of first come, first served, you have to call me senior brother. Zhang Xiaofeng was bubbly as he went up to Yun Yi and teased gleefully. Yun Yi knew that Zhang Xiaofeng was joking with him, but he only smiled and continued to practice throwing chopsticks. The task of throwing chopsticks sounded simple, but if the empty beer bottle was placed dozens of meters away, it would be difficult to throw the chopsticks again. Come here. Just as Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun Yi were teasing each other, Yun Jian waved a hand to signal Zhang Xiaofeng to come to her. Master, what are you doing? Zhang Xiaofeng asked, but he still ran over obediently. With a smile, Yun Jian watched as Zhang Xiaofeng came to her and said, "Give me your hand." Zhang Xiaofeng had no idea what was going on. He scratched his head and extended his hand in confusion, mumbling, "Master, what are you doing?" Before Zhang Xiaofeng could finish his question, Yun Jian suddenly grabbed Zhang Xiaofeng's elbow and pulled Zhang Xiaofeng over to poke at his hard bones. It hurts, master. Zhang Xiaofeng shrieked in pain. In an instant he was drenched in sweat. Xiao Jian, what are you doing? Seeing that Yun Jian was pinching Zhang Xiaofeng's hard bones like she was dealing with a bad guy, Yun Yi dropped her chopsticks and ran over. Yun Jian had already let go of Zhang Xiaofeng. Zhang Xiaofeng was as limp as a puddle of mud, almost falling over. Get up. You're not dead yet. Yun Jian patted Zhang Xiaofeng, who was sprawled on the floor like he was about to die. Zhang Xiaofeng moved the hard bones on his wrist and ankle that were pinched by Yun Jian out of the blue and almost suffocated him from the pain. Why doesn't it hurt anymore? Zhang Xiaofeng swung his hand and stomped his foot, exclaiming in surprise. It was as if the pain that he was drenched in sweat just now was an illusion. Do you want to do it again? Yun Jian asked with a smirk. No. Zhang Xiaofeng shouted in English due to his nervousness. Zhang Xiaofeng then swung his arm and looked at Yun Jian curiously, asking, "Master, what were you doing just now?" Yun Yi was equally curious as she looked at her younger sister with a puzzled expression. Your bones are hard now, but they won't become soft in a short period of time, so I was just stretching your flexibility. You can learn to do it yourself in the future, Yun Jian explained. She paused for a moment before continuing, flexibility is very important. If you don't have flexibility, then your training methods will be no different from ordinary people. Once Zhang Xiaofeng heard that it was a new technique that he had not learned in a long time other than the practice of throwing chopsticks, he was pumped and went to Yun Jian asking, Master, teach me. By the time Yun Jian taught Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun Yi, it was almost 6 or 7 o'clock. Zhang Xiaofeng had something to do in the morning, so he waved goodbye to Yun Jian. Before leaving, he invited Yun Jian, Master, my father's company will hold a fancy party in a few days. You must come then. Cindy will definitely be there too. I'll let you know then. Zhang Xiaofeng said, waving his hand and running away. With a smile, Yun Jian acquiesced to it. Yun Yi was sweating profusely after Yun Jian's training. His white t-shirt was soaked in sweat, and his short hair was also hazy with sweat. Chapter 329. It had been some time since the New Year's Day performance ended, which meant that winter break was not far away. At the same time, the final exams before winter break were coming. There were about 3 weeks to the final exams. Yun Jian woke up early this morning. As usual, she went for a morning run with Zhang Xiaofeng and her newly joined brother Yun Yi, before heading to Dragon Head Gang, which was now Falcon Hall's headquarters. The fact that the original Dragon Head Gang had changed its name to Falcon Hall had caused a commotion in Longmen City. The reason for the commotion was that the original Dragon Head Gang, which was now Falcon Hall, had changed hands. Su Ziqian was no longer the mafia boss. It was said that the position of Longmen City's mafia boss was replaced by a woman named Slaying Luo. This woman named Slaying Luo was, without a doubt, Yun Jian. Yun Jian was the one who came up with the moniker. Yun Jian did not plan to replace Longmen City's mafia boss with her real name, and she was too lazy to think of a new name. Slaying God was her code name when she was the king of secret agents, so it was inappropriate to use it again. Slashing God was her code name as a special forces soldier, so it was inappropriate for it to appear again. Hence, Yun Jian adopted the Slaying character from her past life's codename, Slaying God, and formed a new codename with Luo Gong, Slaying Luo. Hence, the most popular rumor in the underworld was that a woman named Slaying Luo had replaced Longmen City's mafia boss. It was also said that this woman named Slaying Luo had killed her way into Dragon Head Gang's inner circle, but she did not cripple the gang's original boss, Su Ziqian, but let him continue to take over his original job. There were people who commented on Falcon Hall's new boss. This woman must be out of her mind. Of course, there were many rumors, but no one had the ability to obtain accurate information. Hence, everything became hearsay. Now, Yun Jian was carrying a shoulder bag as she walked toward Falcon Hall's headquarters. There was a small shop near Falcon Hall's headquarters. Yun Jian went in to buy a pack of bubble gum and blew a few bubbles as she leisurely made her way to Falcon Hall's headquarters. When the two men guarding the door saw Yun Jian, they couldn't help but shout happily, "Boss!" Everyone in Falcon Hall had heard about what happened to Yun Jian. However, no one would not recognize Yun Jian as their boss. The news had spread in the gang that their new boss was the director of New Cruise. She spent less than half a year to bring New Cruise to where it was today. It was obvious that her strength was not to be underestimated. Yes. Yun Jian also nodded at the two guards. Then she stepped through the main entrance of the building and walked inside. After a while Yun Jian came out again. But this time Yun Jian didn't come out alone. There were two people beside her. At first glance the person on the left was Qin Yu while the one on the right was Su Zetian. Yes, Yun Jian was carrying a shoulder bag. She was planning to go to the National Underground Mafia's tea party. She only planned to bring two people, Su Zetian and Qin Yu. In the beginning, the higher-ups objected to the arrangement. After all, Yun Jian was the boss of Longmen City's underworld. Now that she was going to attend the tea party of the National Underground Mafia, it was only natural that she brought sufficient manpower. In spite of it, other than Su Zetian and Qin Yu, Yun Jian did not plan to bring anyone else. Chapter 330. Country Z's National Mafia Tea Party was held in F City of Ji Province, far away from Longmen City and even Ji Province. The mafia that organized the tea party was Ji Province's provincial mafia, the Green Tiger Mafia. The Green Tiger gang had been established a long time ago. It was said that the gang had already gained a foothold in the area during the Qing dynasty. Even after the war ended, the Green Tiger gang was still the boss of the entire Ji Province. The Green Tiger Mafia had tens of thousands of members scattered across various cities in Ji Province. Their influence and status were incomparable to the original Dragon Head Mafia. In spite of it, the Green Tiger Mafia and Falcon Hall did not have any conflict of interest because the Green Tiger Mafia was in Ji Province while Falcon Hall was in Ji Province's Longmen City. Moreover, the two mafia groups were not in the same field at the moment. One was the provincial boss while Falcon Hall was at most the biggest mafia group in Longmen City. With Falcon Hall's current status, they did not have much influence even in Ji Province. Now Yun Jian was driving her beloved car, the LaFerrari sports car, to F City of Ji Province. The back of the sports car could seat people as well, so it was not a problem for Su Zetian and Qin Yu to sit inside. She chose to drive her beloved car, the LaFerrari, to F City of Ji Province to attend the tea party because despite its exquisite appearance, it was actually modified by Yun Jian. She had already modified the sports car and installed all kinds of bulletproof devices inside. In other words, even if an accident were to happen, it would be useless even if someone were to shoot at her with a pistol or a sniper rifle from behind. Ji Province was far away. Even when Yun Jian raced and maintained a speed of more than 200 km per hour on the distant highway, it still took her 6 hours to reach her destination. Ji Province's security was not as good as Ji Province's. Hence the mafia's development was much more advanced than Ji Province's. Yun Jian drove into F City of Ji Province quickly and was now driving to the tea party's destination. F City of Ji Province, the location of the mafia tea party. There were many cars coming and going, but most of them were escorted by other cars. Those who alighted from the cars, who were the mafia bosses, entered the venue one after another. Compared to the other mafia bosses' grand entrance, or the mafia bosses who were escorted by dozens of black-clad bodyguards, a red Super Limited Edition Ferrari sports car was particularly eye-catching. Once the red Super Limited Edition Ferrari drove into the venue, it attracted a lot of attention. Everyone's gaze was on the car that entered alone without any escort. As the Ferrari drove into the garage slowly, a pair of flat-bottomed white sneakers were the first to be seen in the car. Then, a young girl in her 16 years old, with a very delicate appearance and a shoulder bag on her shoulder, jumped out of the driver's seat. A young girl? Everyone's attention was taken aback. On this kind of day where the leaders of the underworld gathered, there was actually a 16-year-old little kid running here? Oh, Sister Jian, I've been sitting in the back seat for 6 whole hours. My waist is sore. Following that, everyone heard another young girl's grumbling voice. Following that, the girl appeared from the place where the outstanding young girl with a shoulder bag on her shoulder had come out from. Another girl of about 15 or 16 years of age. If they did not know that this was a mafia gathering place where all the mafia bosses gathered, they would have thought that this was an amusement park. Or was one of the mafia bosses really one of the two girls in front of them? That was impossible, was it? It's here. The door to the front passenger seat of the Ferrari opened and a middle-aged man alighted. When they saw the middle-aged man, the expressions of the people around him relaxed slightly. Chapter 331. After all, how could a young girl be the boss of a mafia? Letting an underage girl manage an entire mafia? This was not a game. Therefore, everyone's thoughts were the same. In spite of it, everyone took a second look at Yun Jian and the other two girls. Everyone assumed that Su Zetian was the boss of this mafia and that Yun Jian and Qing Yu were his fighters. But even so, it was enough to surprise people. As a mafia boss, were you planning to embarrass yourself by bringing two young girls to this national mafia tea party? Everyone knew that the purpose of this tea party was to have a friendly competition between all the experts of the gangs. To put it bluntly, it was a competition to see whose mafia members were more powerful. The fighters brought by the mafia were all brawny and strong men. Look at Yun Jian and the other two girls. Su Zetian, who was assumed to be the mafia boss, stood in front while Yun Jian and Qing Yu stood beside him. Outsiders would think that Yun Jian and Qing Yu were incompetent girls just by looking at them. Were they here for a competition? Were they sure they were not here to travel with their children? The outsiders watched as Yun Jian led Su Zetian and Qing Yu into the tea party. When they reached the entrance, there was a person doing a special registration. Which district and which gang? The person doing the registration at the door didn't even raise his head as he asked. Zhe Province's Longmen City, Falcon Hall. Yun Jian's sweet, girlish voice made the person look up. After he was done, he told Yun Jian and the other two girls, "You may go in." As he spoke, the person watched Yun Jian and the other two girls enter the venue. He rubbed his nose and could not help sighing deeply. Do kids nowadays attend places like this? Sigh, kids these days mature early indeed. Yun Jian and the other two girls had already entered the venue of the mafia tea party. The scale of this national mafia tea party was extraordinarily large. Naturally, it had an aura. The Green Tiger Gang was the host of the tea party and the #1 gang in Ji Province. Naturally, they had to put on a strong front. Among the gangs, the original Dragon Head Gang, which was now known as Falcon Hall, really wasn't outstanding. Other than Yun Jian and Qing Yu, who attracted a lot of attention, even Su Zetian, who was with them, received a lot of attention. Sister Jian, it's my first time attending a national mafia gathering like this, Qing Yu said lazily as she picked a snack from the dishes on the table and munched on it. When Qing Yu followed Yun Jian in her past life, the banquets she attended were no smaller than this tea party. Therefore, in the face of a tea party of this scale, he was naturally at ease. Emin, Yun Jian hummed in reply, crossing her arms and standing where she was nonchalantly. She wore a close-fitting thermal bra and a down jacket today. If one only looked at Yun Jian's current appearance and her slender figure that was wrapped in the down jacket, she was very attention-grabbing. Qing Yu's baby face attracted a lot of attention as well. Now that she was munching on a grape, she commented cheerfully, "This tea party can't be compared to the banquets in the past, but the snacks taste pretty good." As she spoke, Qing Yu picked up a grape and passed it to Yun Jian. "Here, Sister Jian, try it. It's delicious." Yun Jian was not haughty. She took the grape and peeled off the skin when it entered her mouth before swallowing it. After a moment, Yun Jian replied, "It's not bad." Just as the three of them were standing there for a long time, with no one paying any attention to them, a voice suddenly sounded in front of them. It was not directed at Yun Jian and Qing Yu, but it was directed at Su Zetian. Instead, he openly mocked Su Zetian. Hee, look, isn't this the former boss of Dragon Head Gang? Apui, I mean the former boss of Falcon Hall? TSK. How are you able to show up here?" Chapter 332. The bald man in his 30s stared at Yun Jian and Qing Yu, who were not too far away from Su Zetian, and guffawed as if he had suddenly caught something hilarious. After a pause, the bald man spoke to Su Zetian arrogantly, "Haha, it's only been a few days and you've brought two little girls to this tea party. Su Zetian, are you kidding me?" As he spoke, the bald man's expression turned arrogant. "Right? Where's the legendary new boss of Falcon Hall, slaying Luo? Iske, I heard she's a woman too." It was a blatant provocation. One had to admit that the bald man was here to pick a fight. "Su Linbo, are you done?" Su Zetian could not hold it in anymore. He finally lost it when Yun Jian did not say anything and roared back at the bald man. The bald man called Su Linbo picked his nose. He picked out a pile of booger from his nostrils and played with it twice between his fingers before flicking it off. He then pointed his nose at Su Zetian and said in an imposing manner, "What? I know. Su Zetian, you're not the boss now. Could it be that Falcon Hall's new boss, slaying Luo, doesn't dare to show up? Ah, but that's true. I heard slaying Luo is a woman. How would a woman dare to come to the territory where we men gather? Su Linbo looked smug. Su Linbo was obviously acquainted with Su Zetian. Reality also proved that Su Linbo and Su Zetian had a deep connection. Su Zetian used to be the boss of Jia Province's Longmen City, but Jia Province had more than one city. There was a city near Longmen City called Yuzhou City, and Su Linbo was the boss of Yuzhou City. The two big bosses in the neighboring districts also had a great relationship with each other. Moreover, Su Linbo and Su Zetian had a huge conflict because of some things back then. Today was another national tea party. When Su Linbo saw Su Zetian, he naturally knew that he was no longer the boss of Falcon Hall. Enemies were usually enraged when they met, so Su Linbo had to come over and taunt him before he would let it go. After all, they were not on good terms back then. How bad was it? The two gangs were almost about to have a cross-city fight. But in the end they didn't fight it out. Just as Su Linbo was feeling smug and completely ignored Yun Jian and Qin Yu, a voice suddenly rang out. The young lady's clear and refined voice was even more eye-catching in this noisy tea party. Who said I didn't dare to come? Am I not here now? Yun Jian suddenly interrupted, but her sudden admission caught Su Linbo, who had been complacent and even a little smug, off guard. Since Yun Jian had answered Su Linbo's question, did it mean that she was the current boss of Falcon Hall, the woman named Slaying Luo? No matter how bad Falcon Hall was, it was still the top mafia group in Longmen City, a legitimate mafia group with thousands of members. Su Linbo and the others were already surprised when they heard that the original Dragon Head gang had been taken over by a young woman named Luo Sha. After all, how could a gang be taken over by a woman? Many people would think that a woman would take over a gang and become the boss. A gang boss was a position that belonged to men. The fact that Falcon Hall was taken over by a woman was already shocking enough. More importantly, this woman named Rakshasa was actually this young girl who didn't even look 18 years old. What a joke. Was there a mistake? In fact, Su Linbo had not even looked at Yun Jian and Qin Yu in the eyes since the beginning. No matter how he looked at them, Yun Jian and Qin Yu, one of them was delicate and pretty while the other had a baby face that was purely childish. They looked like two skinny and weak girls no matter how he looked at them. In order to become the boss of a gang, the most important thing was to have strength. With strength, the brothers in the gang would listen to your orders and follow you wholeheartedly. Yun Jian and Qin Yu on the other hand were hardly convincing. What? You're saying that you're the new boss of Falcon Hall, the woman named Slaying Luo? Su Linbo cried out in shock. His shout immediately attracted the attention of the people in the surrounding circle. In fact, it was not that there were no female bosses in modern society, but they were few and far between. In spite of this, it was unheard of for an underage girl to be the boss. It had never happened since ancient times. Therefore, the crowd who had been paying attention to the situation when Yun Jian and Qin Yu entered looked over when they heard Su Linbo's exclamation. Chapter 333. Everyone's gaze was trained on Yun Jian, waiting for her answer. Falcon Hall's boss was a woman? The news was too shocking. Yun Jian, however, smirked and replied to Su Linbo's question. Why? Don't I look like one? Once the group heard Yun Jian's reply, they could not help grumbling inwardly. Not only do you not look like one, you don't look alike at all, okay? Su Linbo gulped and stared at Yun Jian for another 2 seconds before he snapped out of it. Humph. Since he had said confidently that Yun Jian, Falcon Hall's boss, was not present, Su Linbo's mood was more or less affected as he scoffed. Although Yun Jian had no grudge against him, Su Linbo and Su Zetian had a deep grudge. Now that Yun Jian had taken over Falcon Hall, Su Linbo hated Yun Jian as well. Hence, Su Linbo continued quickly, casting a sidelong glance at Yun Jian as he spoke. Humph, ignorant brat. As he spoke, Su Linbo's gaze turned to Su Zetian again, his words laced with indescribable malice. Ha, Su Zetian, oh Su Zetian, you're amazing too. Aren't you arrogant? Now you've handed your gang to an underage brat. Humph, I, Su Linbo, shall open my eyes wide and see how long Falcon Hall can last. He was mocking Yun Jian in disguise, hinting that Falcon Hall would fall one day after Yun Jian took over. Su Zetian was not a person who would rage at the slightest provocation, but anyone who heard it would not be able to tolerate it. Just as he was about to retort, however, Yun Jian tugged at the corner of his shirt. Sister Jian, what are you doing? Su Zetian's gaze was locked as he asked in bewilderment at Yun Jian's action. Yun Jian did not look at Su Zetian nor did she answer him. Her gaze was trained on Su Linbo, the murderous intent in her eyes blatant. Open your dog eyes and see how much stronger the gang I lead will be compared to a villain like you who speaks behind others' backs. She could crush a despicable person like Su Linbo with one hand. She was the king of secret agents who had made it to where she was now by stepping on the corpses of people who were known as powerhouses. Yun Jian did not think much of Su Linbo even if he was a European arms tycoon, let alone a city-level boss in Jia province. The girl's domineering words echoed throughout the place. For a time, countless famous people were stunned on the spot. Whether Yun Jian was capable or not, she was at least holding the fort now. Su Linbo felt a little guilty from Yun Jian's words, especially when he met Yun Jian's gaze. The murderous intent in Yun Jian's eyes made him shudder. In spite of it, Su Linbo was forced to retort Yun Jian due to his pride. "Humph, I'll be waiting." As he spoke, Su Linbo walked away disgruntledly since he could not win back his pride. As a result, the uproar that was caused just now was instantly dispelled. "Who's that? So annoying." Qing Yu leaned against a long table next to Yun Jian and spoke cheerfully, peeling another grape and chewing it before swallowing it. "He's Su Linbo, the boss of the so-called world's best gang in the neighboring city of Longmen City," Su Ziqian explained from the side. "World's best gang? I think he's more like the last gang. How dare he challenge Sister Jian? He'll be in for it later." Qing Yu patted the sticky grape juice off her hands and went straight to Yun Jian. "Huh?" Su Ziqian did not understand and asked Qing Yu in confusion. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes. Others might not understand Qing Yu's words but she did. After a while, a low male voice suddenly screamed from the crowd, "Hey hey! What's going on? It's so itchy. So itchy. Why is my body so itchy all of a sudden? What's going on? It's so itchy. So itchy." Chapter 334. Perhaps no one else saw what happened just now. Yun Jian, on the other hand, saw everything clearly and understood what happened over there. Qing Yu's poisoning was done stealthily, so Yun Jian was not surprised. When Su Linbo was near them, Qing Yu had poisoned him without a sound. It was a poison that made a person itch so much that they wanted to scratch themselves all over. If there was no antidote, they might even peel off a layer of their skin. Other than Yun Jian, the others did not see what happened just now because Qing Yu's poisoning speed was too fast for the naked eye to see. How could Qing Yu, nicknamed Lady Poison, be a weakling? Of course, Yun Jian could see that Qing Yu had poisoned her. Humph, who asked him to be so smug just now? How dare he slander my sister Jian? He should have a taste of his own medicine. Qing Yu looked at where Su Linbo was acting up and pouted before grabbing a small tomato from the long table to stuff it into her mouth and chew. Su Ziqian heard Qing Yu's grumbling as well and could not help turning to look at Qing Yu from the corner of Yun Jian's head. He had witnessed Yun Jian's skills before. Yun Jian was fast, accurate and ruthless. Not long after, Su Linbo began to scratch his body. Then, Su Linbo's reaction became more and more intense. In the end, he actually fell to the ground and started rolling. Combined with Qing Yu's grumbling, Su Ziqian could not help but be surprised. Could Su Linbo's reaction be Qing Yu's doing? Su Ziqian had thought that Qing Yu was just a young girl who followed Yun Jian around and did not even consider her capabilities. Now, Su Ziqian was even more surprised. It turned out that not only was Yun Jian skilled, the girl she brought along was extraordinarily skilled as well. Su Ziqian had been staring at Su Linbo without blinking earlier. He had watched Su Linbo walk away and did not even see Qing Yu make a move all this while. Yet the poison had already reached Su Linbo? What level was this? Let's go check it out over there. Yun Jian's gaze was nonchalant. She exuded a nonchalant aura, but her clear eyes and delicate features exuded an exquisite and unparalleled beauty. She was looking in a direction and urged Su Ziqian and Qing Yu to go with her. Su Ziqian grew solemn when he heard that Yun Jian wanted to go over there. From what he could tell, there must be a reason behind Yun Jian's words. "Has Sister Jian you found this?" Qing Yu's voice came again. What did she find? Su Ziqian followed Yun Jian went over solemnly, thinking that Yun Jian must have discovered something important. It was because she gave off the impression that she was a person who was calm and collected even in the face of major events. When he followed Yun Jian to a long dining table with a variety of delicacies, however, he saw Yun Jian reaching out to take a huge crab from the table. She then peeled the crab and dipped it in the soy sauce on the table before eating it bite by bite. Su Ziqian, who thought that Yun Jian had found something important, was dumbfounded. It turned out that Yun Jian had brought them here just to eat this huge crab. Qing Yu's cheeky face could not help breaking into a smile. She leaned on the table and turned to ask Yun Jian, "Sister Jian, this tea party doesn't look like much, but the food is pretty good." Yun Jian nodded and swallowed the last mouthful of fatty crab meat before commenting, "This crab is delicious." Yun Jian loved crabs. She loved all kinds of seafood. Qingyu was aware of this, which was why she said what she said just now. Su Zetian, who was standing to the side, gulped. He was suddenly speechless. Chapter 335. As for Su Linbua, he had been rolling around on the ground for quite a while after Yun Jian had finished eating an entire crab. Due to Su Linbua's ruckus, some of the people who were in charge of maintaining order at the tea party stepped in and carried Su Linbua to the hospital. On Su Linbua's exposed skin, there were many dense red pustules growing out of it. He's allergic, isn't he? What bad luck. Someone could not help shouting. Su Linbua's reaction did seem like an allergic reaction, so everyone assumed that it was just an allergic reaction. However, Su Linbua's reaction was quite frightening, so they had no choice but to carry him to the hospital. After that, the tea party officially began. Su Linbua's abnormal reaction did not attract much attention. Instead, outside the tea party venue, a man in his 30s with thick brows and a rather handsome appearance was escorted in by a group of more than 10 bodyguards, attracting the attention of the crowd. This rather good-looking man was the organizer of the tea party for all the gangs in the country, the boss of Ji Province's famous Green Tiger gang, Long Yuqing. Currently, Long Yuqing was being escorted into the venue by a group of bodyguards. At that time, a large group of gang leaders from all over the country rushed forward and took the opportunity to curry favor with them. Green Tiger Gang was not only the top gang in Ji Province, but it was also the leading gang in the northern region of the country. In other words, the boss of the northern region of the country was Green Tiger Gang. Therefore, Green Tiger Gang's boss, Long Yuqing, attracted everyone's attention as soon as he appeared. In addition, Long Yuqing was not only the boss of Green Tiger Gang in everyone's eyes, but he was also young and promising. He was only 31 years old this year and was quite good-looking. He could be considered handsome. Many of the gang bosses had the intention of using their daughters to get close to Long Yuqing. If he could climb into Long Yuqing's bed, that would be the best. But if he couldn't, it would be good even if it was a stroke of good fortune. For a moment, there was no one else other than Yun Jian, Qingyu, and Su Zetian who remained where they were. Long Yuqing glanced around and was stunned when his gaze landed on Yun Jian and the rest. There was actually such an exquisite beauty in this world. Moreover, all the people present at the tea party were either the leaders of the various major gangs or the fighters of the gang leaders. They were all high-ranking members of the gangs. Yun Jian and Qingyu's presence was rather conspicuous. When Long Yuqing saw that Yun Jian was standing in the same spot and did not come forward to flatter him, his curiosity was piqued. Curiosity killed the cat. At this time, Long Yuqing pushed through the crowd and walked towards Yun Jian. Yun Jian was standing in the same spot. Her eyes were calm, but she could feel Long Yuqing walking towards her. "This beautiful lady, how should I address you?" Long Yuqing asked as he stood in front of Yun Jian, sizing her up with interest amidst the crowd's support and envy. Yun Jian only raised her head to glance at Long Yuqing before withdrawing her gaze. She faintly spat out 2 words, "Rakshasa." Long Yuqing was even more surprised when he saw Yun Jian looking down and ignoring him after a glance. Of all the people who came here, which one of them wasn't anxious to curry favor with him? She was really special. "May I know which gang you're from then?" Long Yuqing's voice sounded as loud as he could to make the women present scream. However, Yun Jian did not feel anything. She did not even bother to reply to Long Yuqing. "We're from Jia Province's Falcon Hall." Su Zetian, on the other hand, was a little scared when Yun Jian did not reply to Long Yuqing, so he replied on her behalf. "Haha, interesting." Long Yuqing narrowed his eyes and stared at Yun Jian with interest. His eyes were gleaming, but he turned to leave when Yun Jian ignored him again. Chapter 336. Long Yuqing's appearance did not fluster Yun Jian at all. It was Su Zetian who panicked as he stood beside Yun Jian and looked at her worriedly. "Sister Jian, that's Green Tiger Gang's boss, Long Yuqing. He's young, but he's the boss of the biggest gang in the north. Rumor has it that he's ruthless. Nothing he sets his sights on has ever escaped. He probably had his eyes on you just now. Sister Jian, why don't we leave earlier?" The reason why the other gangs were so afraid of the Green Tiger Gang and wanted to get close to it was because it was a gang with absolute capability. In the early years, when numerous gangs of various sizes were fighting for supremacy in the north, the Green Tiger Gang had already stood out. It had hundreds of years of history and a strong foundation. It was rumored that its wealth could rival a country's. Of course, it was just a metaphor. It did not mean that the Green Tiger Gang was really that powerful. However, Su Zetian had heard that Long Yuqing was young, only 31 years old, but he was extremely ruthless in his methods. There was another rumor about Long Yuqing. It was said that no one he set his sights on, be it a woman or a man, could escape from his clutches. Suzachin was at most the boss of a small Longmen city back then. He had never thought of going up against the most powerful gang in the north, Green Tiger Gang. This was something that was completely impossible to win. What Long Yuqing said just now meant that he had his eyes on Yunjian. Therefore the only way Suzachin could think of was to run. Run? Do you think I'm the kind of person who would run away from a battle? Yunjian chuckled at Suzachin's words and tucked a handful of hair behind her ear as she said with pursed lips. Qingyu, who was standing aside, chuckled. In contrast to Suzachin's worries, Qingyu was unfazed. In spite of it, there was a reason for her to run. If Yunjian was really that capable, if she was only the boss of a mere Falcon Hall and caught the attention of Green Tiger Gang's boss, Long Yuqing, the biggest gang in the north, it was possible for her to run away immediately. It was a pity that Yunjian was not like that. The word, escape, had never appeared in her dictionary. The tea party lasted for a while. During this time, all the bosses present as well as the higher-ups who came to participate in the tea party, only drank tea, tasted the food and tasted the desserts. It wasn't until one of the hosts from the Green Tiger Gang stepped forward to host the event that the peaceful atmosphere was broken. Everyone please be quiet. Everyone here is a gang leader from all over the country, as well as the higher-ups of the various gangs. First of all, I would like to welcome you. Secondly, according to tradition, every year during the tea party in the underworld, there will be a ranking of the strength of all the major sections. Therefore, I would like to ask all the experts of the sects to make preparations. In a while, the friendly competition between the sects will begin. Everyone, please have the elites from your sects come to the arena. The Green Tiger Gang basically invited all the gangs in the country to a tea party every year. At the same time, they would also hold a ranking of the gang's strength. In other words, the leaders of the various gangs would bring the strongest person in their gang to participate in this tea party. Furthermore, during the competition, the strongest person among them would participate in the competition. Of course, at this time, the strongest person in the gang would represent their own gang. The first round of the competition will be a competition of marksmanship. Everyone, please gather in the backyard of the tea party. After the host finished speaking, he led the crowd to the backyard of the tea house. Let's go too, Yunjian turned to say to Su Ziqian and Qingyu. The three of them then followed the crowd to the backyard of the tea house. Chapter 337. Yunjian nodded in agreement. Qingyu's poison skill was astounding, but her marksmanship was not the best. However, in a gang tea party like this, no matter how bad her marksmanship was, she would still be one of the best among the group. Su Ziqian did not say anything. He knew that Yunjian must have her reasons for agreeing. Yunjian and the other two girls were standing in the corner, but they were also the most conspicuous. Long Youqing's conversation with Yunjian earlier had attracted the attention of many people present. Yunjian and the other two girls were there as well. In addition, they had heard that Yunjian was Falcon Hall's boss, so they were even more curious about who they would send for the competition. Falcon Hall will probably send that middle-aged man who looks more muscular to compete. After all, the two girls don't look convincing at all. Moreover, the first round is a marksmanship competition. They probably haven't even touched a gun before, have they? Some people could not help discussing. I think it'll be that middle-aged man too. Among the trio, there were two girls and Su Ziqian was the only one who was older and looked more robust, so everyone thought that he would be the one to represent Falcon Hall in the competition. Beautiful, we meet again as expected. Do you want me to lend you a hand? I'll send a subordinate to you. Long Yuqing, who had left earlier, came to the backyard of the tea house. He looked at Yunjian and asked with a suggestive gaze. Qingyu, go over. Yunjian ignored Long Yuqing. She did not even look at him as she turned to speak to Qingyu. Qingyu turned and walked toward the place where the powerhouses from various gangs were gathered after listening to Yunjian. Qingyu looked sweet and adorable with a delicate baby face. However, when Qingyu walked over, someone finally couldn't help but shout, F***ck, it can't be. This is really sending little girls to compete in spear skills? Someone immediately replied, I think the boss of Falcon Hall, Slaying Luo, knows that there's no one in his gang, so he sent a little girl up. Even if he loses this round, it won't be embarrassing for him in the future. Looks like the boss of Falcon Hall isn't that great after all. How boring. Some of the people who were watching the show had already started chatting with relish. The highlight of the annual tea party was the time when the various sects would compete against each other to rank their strength. It was also the time when people were most excited about it. TSK Beauty, you heard it yourself, right? Wasn't it nonsense to send a little girl to shoot a gun? I said that I would send a subordinate to help you out of the goodness of my heart. Why don't you appreciate it? Long Yuqing stood not far from Yun Jian and couldn't help but whisper. All in all, his words were filled with doubts about the azure glaze spear technique. However, before Long Yuqing could finish his sentence, a series of gunshots rang out from the arena. Bang bang bang. 10 consecutive gunshots rang out as Qin Yu raised her gun and aimed at the target before she started firing. 10 shots, each one in the ring, hitting the target 10 times. Long Yuqing shut his mouth at once. Those who were gossiping about Yun Jian and her companions just now kept their mouths shut as well. On the other side, Qin Yu ran back after firing her 10 shots. When she came to Yun Jian, she said joyfully, "Sister Jian, I'm done, but the target is so close. It's really easy." Yun Jian nodded faintly without much reaction. She looked as if everything was within her expectations. After that, each gang's experts fired their 10 shots and the person in charge of registration was done as well. At this time, the host stood on the competition stage again and used his not-so-pleasant voice to continue speaking. Cough cough. Everyone, the experts of the gangs have performed very well. Now, we will immediately begin the second round of the competition. This round will be a competition of martial arts. Taekwondo, Wushu, Sanda, whatever martial arts you can use them all. Chapter 338. Qin Yu waved her hand when she heard that this round was a martial arts competition. She turned to Yun Jian and said with a press of dry lips, "Sister Jian, I can't compete in martial arts." Qin Yu was a poison expert and her marksmanship was decent as well, but she could only fend off attacks from high-level secret agents or assassins when it came to martial arts. Of course, she could only fend off attacks from the side. Qin Yu had never been good at martial arts competitions where one's fist was harder. A lot of people were listening intently to Yun Jian and her companions' movements. Yun Jian and her companions were too eye-catching. Moreover, even Green Tiger Gang's boss, Long Yuqing, seemed to be interested in Yun Jian. In addition, Qin Yu's marksmanship that was looked down upon by a bunch of people just now was astounding. Qin Yu was not the only one who had hit the bullseye just now. Those who represented their gangs in the competition were all formidable characters. None of them were weak. Compared to them, however, Qin Yu stood out because of her age. For a young girl who was only in her teens to have such powerful spear skills, it was really amazing. In spite of it, everyone could not help gasping when they heard Qin Yu say that she was not good at martial arts. God was fair. Qin Yu's marksmanship was good, but her ability was lacking. What these people did not know was that even if Qin Yu's ability was lacking, she had 1,000 ways to poison anyone present to death unknowingly. Amen? Yun Jian nodded faintly. The crowd started guessing again who Falcon Hall's woman, slaying Luo, would send to compete this time. It should be that middle-aged man this time. I don't think it's anyone else other than him. There's only 3 of them here. She can't possibly be the one to show up. Someone said, looking at Yun Jian. "Beauty, do you dare to make a bet with me?" Long Yuqing could not help asking as he looked at Yun Jian. "What's the bet?" Yun Jian grinned and replied to Long Yuqing. "If Falcon Hall ranks within the top 10 of all the sects in this martial arts competition, then I'll agree to any of your conditions. But if you can't get into the top 10, you can be my girlfriend. What do you think?" Long Yuqing's words were very unreasonable. Not to mention that Long Yuqing was already 31 years old, which was a full generation older than Yun Jian. However, Long Yuqing felt that the first time he saw Yun Jian, he felt that she was very attractive and special. That was why his interest was piqued and he made such a suggestion. In Long Yuqing's mind, there were only 3 of them, including Yun Jian. Now that Qin Yu was not participating in the competition, and Su Ziqian did not look particularly strong either. His request was for Falcon Hall to be ranked within the top 10 among all the sects present in the martial arts competition. It was not an easy task. There might be an exception in the shooting competition just now, but it was not so easy to win in a martial arts competition. Moreover, there were more than 100 people from all the sects present. It was not easy to get into the top 10 among all the sects present. In the past, the first place always belonged to Green Tiger Gang. As for the other sects, they were not weak either. Falcon Hall's predecessor was Dragon Head Gang. Long Yuqing had some impression of Dragon Head Gang. He vaguely remembered that Dragon Head Gang had always ranked below the top 100 in the past years. That was why Long Yuqing proposed the bet with Yun Jian so boldly. Even if Dragon Head Gang, which was the current Falcon Hall, improved greatly, could they get into the top 10 from the top 100? Under everyone's gaze, Yun Jian's lips curled into a smile as she agreed to Long Youqing's bet. Sure. Sister Jian, you can't do this. Su Ziqian called out anxiously from the side. I know what to do, Yun Jian replied and stood up to make her way to the arena. Due to Qing Yu's appearance just now, Yun Jian's appearance was no longer a surprise to the people present. Once they were in the arena, the opponents were decided according to the order of drawing lots. Yun Jian drew a lot and went up to the arena ready to fight. A bulky man came up from the opposite side of the arena. It was obvious that this person was her opponent. At this time, someone saw the tall and sturdy man and immediately shouted in surprise. Chapter 339. What do you mean? It said. It's true. Teng Shi is the second in command of the Green Tiger Gang. His ability is nothing to scoff at. Did you guys know that? Teng Shi has always represented the Green Tiger Gang and won first place in the past martial arts competitions. Is this for real? Is that good? Do you think he's bluffing? The group of people who were watching the show commented enthusiastically. The friendly competition between the major guilds was, in fact, just sending the strongest person in their own gang to participate. However, the strongest person in the gang represented the entire gang behind him. However, a single powerhouse could be compared to countless higher-ups. Therefore, everyone valued this friendly competition. After all, whichever gang sent this person to win first place would mean that the gang was very powerful. The crowd was enjoying the show while Su Ziqian wore a bitter expression on his face. Compared to Su Ziqian, Qing Yu was sitting on a bench lazily, munching on the sunflower seeds that she used to entertain the guests. Long Youqing, on the other hand, sat on the highest seat. He narrowed his eyes, certain that Yun Jian would lose. At the same time, Yun Jian, who was thought to lose for sure, stood in the ring. She glanced sideways at her opponent, the burly Teng Shi, who was about 1.93 meters tall. The difference between Teng Shi's height and Yun Jian, who was about 1.6 meters tall, was huge. Under such circumstances, no one thought that Yun Jian could win the competition. That included Su Ziqian. Although Yun Jian had defeated Shiniji, who almost made it into the international fighting tournament, Teng Shi was not on the same level as Shiniji back then. Teng Shi was originally a retired Special Forces soldier. When he was a Special Forces soldier, he had even killed a female secret agent from an international underground organization with his bare hands. Therefore, Su Ziqian thought that no matter how powerful Yun Jian was, she was only a little girl after all. Could she really defeat Teng Shi, who had killed the female secret agents from the underground organization, who killed without batting an eyelid? You want to fight me? Soaring Snake frowned when he saw that his opponent was Yun Jian. It wasn't that Teng Shi looked down on Yun Jian, but as a veteran Special Forces soldier, he felt helpless when he was asked to fight this young girl who was not even an adult yet. Yes. Yun Jian looked straight at the Soaring Snake. She was not afraid in the face of danger. When the audience saw this, they all began to cheer. However, they all cheered for Soaring Snake. Soaring Snake. Defeat her and send her home to drink milk. How dare you come here and ask for a beating? I don't hit children. Soaring Snake, on the other hand, stared at Yun Jian for 2 seconds. After he finished speaking in front of everyone, he turned around to leave the arena. You're not fighting anymore? It hasn't even started yet. Someone couldn't help but voice out in disappointment. Just as Soaring Snake was about to walk out of the arena, the girl's clear and melodious voice came from behind him. What a pity. I specialize in fighting big friends. She compared him to a big friend? When Soaring Snake heard Yun Jian's words, he was stunned. When he turned around, he saw a figure so fast that it was impossible to see with the naked eye rushing towards him. In the next second, the figure kicked Soaring Snake in the abdomen. Soaring Snake could clearly feel himself being kicked a few meters away. His chest was burning as he fell outside the arena. That speed was indescribable with words. In the past, he had killed a female secret agent from an international underground organization. That secret agent's killing method was mysteriously similar to the kick he had received. Chapter 340. Teng Shi lost before the fight even started? The audience below was dumbfounded. However, many of them were Teng Shi's fans. In their eyes, Yun Jian's move was a sneak attack. Hence, someone stood up from his seat and shouted at Yun Jian, "Little girl, that was a sneak attack. It doesn't count. If Teng Shi was serious, you'd probably be sent home to drink milk." Some people also stood up and spoke up for Teng Shi. They even complained about Yun Jian. That's right. You're so young, yet you're using a sneak attack. How shameless. Get lost. Get lost. In an instant, the number of people cursing Yun Jian increased greatly. Long Yuqing, who was sitting below, had already sensed that something was wrong when Yun Jian made her move. He narrowed his eyes and stared at Yun Jian as if he wanted to see through her. Yun Jian, who was slandered by the crowd, was unmoved. She narrowed her eyes and looked at Teng Shi, who was lying on the ground. Suddenly, she hooked her pinky and said with a glimmer in her eyes, "If you're not convinced, you can fight me fair and square." Yun Jian didn't intend to win with a sneak attack. Reality proved that if she didn't make the first move with Teng Shi's character, he would probably leave. Teng Shi, who was lying on the ground, looked at Yun Jian and stopped looking at her with contempt. Yun Jian didn't use too much strength in her kick. Even so, it was enough to hurt Teng Shi, but it didn't hurt his muscles or bones. Teng Shi patted the dust off and stood up from the ground. He frowned and looked at Yun Jian for 2 seconds. After a while, his face darkened again. Under everyone's gaze, he said to Yun Jian, "I admit defeat." Teng Shi was a smart person. He was able to become the second in command of the Green Tiger Gang and had worked for Long Yuqing for so many years. He definitely had some tricks up his sleeve. Yun Jian's kick just now might have looked like a sneak attack to others, but only he knew. Even if Soaring Snake hadn't been ambushed and had fought Yun Jian head-on, the result would have been the same. He would have been sent flying with a kick. Teng Shi was the champion of the martial arts competition over the years. It could be said that as long as he admitted defeat, Yun Jian would have a 100% chance of winning even if she fought with others later on. After all, Yun Jian's kick just now was not for show. No one dared to underestimate Yun Jian anymore. They also knew that since Yun Jian dared to come on stage, she must have some skills. However, Teng Shi's admission of defeat still shocked everyone. However, compared to Soaring Snake's surrender, Long Yuqing's expression was the ugliest. Long Yuqing was the first to stand up. As the leader of the Green Tiger Gang, he slammed the table and ordered Soaring Snake, "How can a member of the Green Tiger Gang be such a coward?" Long Yuqing was afraid that if Teng Shi admitted defeat, Yun Jian might really make it to the top 10. He was still waiting for Yun Jian to fulfill her promise after she lost. Teng Shi remained unmoved after hearing Long Yuqing's words. If he could win, why would he admit defeat? However, even though he knew that he couldn't beat his opponent, Teng Shi wasn't so stupid as to rush to his death. "Boss, I'm not a coward. I really can't beat her. That kick just now didn't seem special, but the way she attacked was similar to the female international secret agent I killed years ago. No, it was even better. Back then, when I killed that female international underground agent, I was also covered in wounds and on the verge of death. I almost died. That's why I can't beat her in this round. That's why I admitted defeat." Teng Shi's words pierced everyone's hearts. Such a high evaluation caused huge waves in everyone's hearts. Chapter 341. The female international secret agent that Teng Shi had killed was an elite with decent skills. It was said that she could be ranked in the top 50 of the secret agent ranking. International was a global concept. To be able to be ranked in the top 50 of the assassin or secret agent ranking was already quite powerful. After all, there were many assassins or secret agents in the world. As for the top 10 assassins or secret agents in the international assassin or secret agent ranking, they were simply freaks that crawled out from a pile of dead people. Among the top 20 assassins or secret agents, which one of them was not a big devil with blood on their hands? These 20 people were people that no one present would even think about. After all, these people were at the top of the world and they did not have the life to meet them. Therefore, Teng Shi, who had killed the female international agent, had won the respect of the strong in everyone's hearts. Today, however, Teng Shi, who claimed to be a powerhouse, was saying that Yun Jian was more skillful than the female agent whom he had barely managed to kill back then. Under such circumstances, who would dare to fight with Yun Jian? However, if the people present knew that Yun Jian was the strongest among the 20 big devils, they would probably be scared witless. As for whether I, Teng Shi, am a coward or not, boss, I'm not a coward. However, I'm not a suicidal person either. Therefore, I admit that I'm not as good as you in this martial arts competition. Teng Shi said this to Long Yuqing, then turned around and left the arena, walking toward the guest seats. Long Yuqing was shocked by Teng Shi's words, but he immediately revealed a trace of viciousness on his face. Ahem, since Teng Shi admitted defeat, then it's Luosha's victory. The host continued to preside over the event. In this martial arts competition, Yun Jian defeated Teng Shi, but she still had to fight with the other masters of the gang. However, because of Teng Shi's precedent, the other people who met Yun Jian all admitted defeat with tears in their eyes. What a joke! How would they dare to fight a woman that even Teng Shi could not defeat? Wouldn't that be courting death? Therefore, Yun Jian did not even need to fight again to secure the first place in the martial arts competition. Winning first place in the martial arts competition also meant that Falcon Hall had surpassed the Green Tiger Gang this year and became the overall champion of this Tea Party competition. First place. Due to Qin Yu's outstanding marksmanship in the first round and Yun Jian's first place in this round, the overall champion was Falcon Hall. The result shocked everyone present, and Long Youqing's expression darkened further. Long Youqing had planned for Yun Jian's Falcon Hall never to enter the top 10, that was why he made the bet. But now, her Falcon Hall had actually replaced her Green Tiger Gang and won first place in this Tea Party competition. Yun Jian, who had not even made a move, returned to her seat. She was not in a hurry to sit down but stared at Long Youqing with her pretty eyes and asked, "I wonder if the bet I made with Boss Long earlier still stands?" Long Youqing's expression darkened under everyone's watchful eyes. He had lost face because of a woman. She, on the other hand, was only the boss of a city-level gang. How dare she threaten him again and again? Reality proved that Long Youqing did not plan to fulfill his promise. Chapter 342. Although Long Youqing was the boss of the Green Tiger Gang, and he was quite good-looking, at least his facial features could be considered decent. But how many of the gang members who could survive in the black market were honest and upright? It was true that gangsters were loyal, but it did not apply to Long Youqing. Su Ziqian was afraid of Long Youqing from the start because this was Long Youqing's territory. More importantly, Long Youqing did not have a good reputation among the big gangs. Some people said that he changed his attitude faster than flipping a book. Moreover, as mentioned earlier, there was nothing that Long Youqing could not get if he wanted it. As for Long Youqing's sudden change in attitude, everyone present could not wait to avoid it. Yun Jian, the person in question, was surrounded by Long Youqing's gang of close to 100 men. However, she looked normal and did not look surprised at all. Even Long Youqing's sudden change in attitude seemed to be within her expectations. Long Youqing was already on his feet now. He went to Yun Jian and looked down at her from above. After 2 seconds of silence, he spoke to Yun Jian. You're a smart person. Since that's the case, I won't beat around the bush with you. I, Long Youqing, have countless women, but I've never met one that I like. Those women only care about my identity and status. But you're different. You're special. So I'm giving you a chance now. I want you to be my woman. Long Youqing's words were said in a firm tone. His words carried the meaning of, I'm flattering you by asking you to be my woman. Yun Jian only narrowed her eyes slightly. Her petite body was wrapped in a simple down jacket, but she looked strangely alluring. What if I refuse? Yun Jian raised her eyebrows. She did not show any fear and her words were clear. Then Falcon Hall will disappear from the stage of the black market. Long Youqing's pupils shrunk as he stared at Yun Jian's beautiful body. His desire was aroused as he threatened loudly. Yun Jian was different from other women. She seemed to have many secrets about her, and her beautiful and alluring body was constantly attracting Long Youqing. Long Youqing desperately wanted to have her for himself. He could not help roaring inwardly that he had to make this woman his prisoner in bed. Are you sure? Yun Jian, on the other hand, kept her smile with squinted eyes. There was an unfathomable viciousness on her petite face. Su Ziqian and Qin Yu were standing behind Yun Jian, surrounded by a group of people. Su Ziqian was already sweating profusely. This time, Sister Jian did not bring any of her brothers with her, but something like this happened. He was afraid that Long Youqing would ruin Yun Jian, of course. Babe, all of this can be avoided if you're obedient. Long Youqing was back to his usual self as he walked up to Yun Jian with a smile and stood in front of her. Her fair and flawless skin was reflected in Long Youqing's eyes as he unconsciously reached out to touch Yun Jian's cheek. The gang leaders who dared not make a sound shook their heads inwardly. Yun Jian was skilled, but there were only 3 of them. How could she win against Long Youqing? The pretty girl was probably going to be ruined here. Just as Long Youqing reached out to touch Yun Jian's cheek with a smile, a bright object flashed before everyone's eyes. TSS. With a soft sound, a blinding bullet came from afar and sank into Long Youqing's hand that was about to touch Yun Jian's skin. Ow! Long Youqing howled as the bullet pierced his palm, his voice echoing through the clouds. Everyone was stunned by this turn of events. At the same time, everyone looked in the direction where the bullet had come from. A man in his 19 years of age was escorted by 2 men in their 20s as they walked over. The man in the middle was the one who had fired the shot. He was currently striding over with his long legs. Chapter 343. The newcomer was Ce. The two men standing behind Ce were none other than Adam and Mo's son, who were always by his side. The appearance of the three men immediately caused a commotion among the crowd. The three of them were all top-notch beauties, and their appearances were absolutely stunning. In comparison, Ce's looks were a cut above the other two men. The surrounding crowd was dumbfounded by what they saw. Originally, among this group of people, Long Youqing's appearance could be considered to be the most upright and outstanding. However, the appearance of the three men, not to mention Ce who was standing in the middle, the two men beside him were far more attractive than Long Youqing. As for Ce who was standing in the middle, he was so handsome that words could not describe him. At that moment, what frightened the crowd the most was what Ce had said earlier. Kill Long Youqing? Destroy the Green Tiger Gang? The crowd's hearts skipped a beat, but they quickly calmed down. Even if Ce had shot Long Youqing's palm the moment he appeared, what kind of status did the Green Tiger Gang have? The Green Tiger Gang was the top gang in the northern region. How could they be destroyed just like that? Yes, young master. Mo's son, who was standing on the left, answered. He then took out his phone from his pocket and dialed a number. Who are you? How dare you say that you want to kill me and destroy the Green Tiger Gang? Long Youqing's face was contorted in pain as he pressed his other hand that was shot through with one hand and took 2 steps forward to stand in front of Ce, speaking through the pain. You don't deserve to know our young master's identity. Haha, as for your Green Tiger Gang, our Hun organization can't destroy you. Adam could no longer suppress his irritable nature. He jumped out and sneered at Long Youqing. An Hun organization? An Hun organization. Wasn't an Hun organization the famous assassin organization that had trained countless international bigwigs? One should know that the top secret agent, Slaying God, who had shaken the world and made countless businessmen, politicians and international tycoons tremble in fear, was from an Hun organization. These people were from the Hun organization. Hearing Adam's words, Long Youqing's face, which was already pale due to his injuries, became as white as a sheet of paper. He was stunned on the spot. The Hun organization, along with the Kosha mercenaries, was known as the #1 assassin organization and the #1 mercenary organization. Someone once said that if you offended anyone from the Hun organization, you wouldn't be far from death. Long Youqing hadn't expected the people from Hun to show up at his little tea party. The bullet had pierced his palm, but Long Youqing was enduring the suffocating pain. He knelt down with a thud and crawled towards Ce. Please let me go, let me go. I don't know how I've angered all of you, but please forgive me. Let me go this time. Long Youqing's entire body was trembling, and his voice was trembling. Heavens! An Hun organization. Long Youqing had angered the people from an Hun organization? Not to mention the Green Tiger Gang. Even if all the gangs present were to combine forces, they wouldn't be a match for an Hun organization. This was the difference in ability. I don't know how you've angered our young master. You challenged our young madam in public, and you say you didn't anger our young master? Adam stood in front of Long Youqing and mercilessly stomped on the back of Long Youqing's hand as he spoke word by word. Chapter 344. From today onwards, don't let me hear any news about the Green Tiger Gang. Ce turned his body sideways, not even sparing a glance at Long Youqing, who was kneeling on the ground with Adam stepping on the back of his hand, announcing his end. Young mistress? This woman named Slaying Luo was the woman of this man who possessed such a dominating aura? Long Youqing's eyes lost their color as he stood rooted to the ground. His heart was pounding with regret. Alas, it was too late. He actually wanted to snatch the woman from an Hun group? Now, the 100-year-old Green Tiger Gang that had been passed down by his ancestors would be destroyed because of his mistake. Everyone was stunned as they stared at Ce, who announced the end of the northern region's top gang, Green Tiger Gang, as he walked toward Yunjian. At this moment, everyone's hearts surged with a wild exclamation. Yunjian was actually the woman of an important figure in an Hun group. She actually had connections with people from an Hun organization. Su Ziqian was equally stunned. He stared blankly at the man who walked toward Yunjian like a king, exclaiming inwardly. It was no wonder that Yunjian was so confident that she could lead the gang out of Longmen City. Su Ziqian was the only one who felt grateful that he had chosen to follow Yunjian back then. Otherwise, he would still be wandering around Longmen City. Yunjian was destined to be extraordinary. Ce was already in front of Yunjian. Looking at the girl's petite face, he had the urge to hide her in his embrace and prevent her from being stolen by anyone. Why are you here? Yunjian blinked. She had wanted to make a move just now, but Ce had made the first move. Moreover, he had told her that he would be leaving for a while. She did not expect him to appear here, so she asked, "I'm done here, so I came to look for you." She did not expect to see the scene just now. Ce did not finish his sentence, but his raised brow was enough to show his fury. His tall frame standing in front of Yunjian was strangely compatible with Yunjian. It was just a simple conversation, but the meaning behind it was self-evident. "Young master, Green Tiger Gang's headquarters has been destroyed." Mo Sun hung up the phone and went to Ce, saying something that stirred everyone's emotions again. Ce answered and went over to grab Yunjian's hand to walk out. The following matters were naturally left to Adam and Mo Sun to handle. Wait. Yunjian was taken by Ce. She paused and turned to take out her Ferrari sports car key to Qingyu from her pocket and tossed it to Qingyu's car. "Qing." With that, Yunjian's hand, Qingyu caught it and replied, "Okay, Sister Jian." By then Yunjian and Ce had already left. Long Yuqing watched as Yunjian and Ce left. He clutched his palm, but the blood was already flowing down. "What are you looking at? You've offended my young master. Today I'm going to kill you." Adam stepped on the back of Long Yuqing's hand and twisted Long Yuqing's head mercilessly. The tea party could not continue now that it had come to this. However, no one would have thought that the Green Tiger Gang, once the #1 gang in the northern region, would completely disappear from the stage of history just because Long Yuqing had flirted with a woman that he should not have flirted with. Chapter 345. When Yunjian and Ce walked out of the tea party venue, Adam lifted his leg to grab Long Yuqing from the ground and was about to give him the final blow. Suddenly, a weak male voice rang out from the tea party venue. The man's voice was directed at Adam. "Are you Adam, one of the 4 leaders of the Inhun organization?" There were 4 leaders in Inhun organization. Their names were Adam, Mo Sen, Shuaying and Lin Wei. The 4 leaders of Inhun organization were the people with the highest positions in the organization other than the leader. Moreover, the 4 of them had their own duties and each of them was comparable to the top 3 of the international assassin and secret agent rankings. Among the 4 of them, Lin Wei was in charge of training the assassins in Inhun organization. Hence, he was the most mysterious. Shuaying, on the other hand, represented the leader of Inhun organization. As for Adam and Mo Sen, they followed the leader of Inhun organization. Both of them were the closest to the leader of Inhun organization, who was rumored to be powerful but never revealed himself. This weak male voice came from a sickly and frail middle-aged man. He had heard that Adam, one of the 4 leaders of the Inhun organization, was a hot-tempered person, which was very similar to the person in front of him. Hence he spoke up. However, when the crowd heard him, they were stunned and held their breath. Everyone who was present was in the underworld, who had not heard of the 4 leaders of Inhun organization. Even Qingyu could not help but shudder at this moment. Adam and Mo Sun were the ones who always followed the leader of Inhun organization. They would never show weakness to anyone. There was only one person who could make them listen to him and bow down to him willingly. That person was the leader of Inhun organization. If that was the case, could the man who looked like he was only 19 years old be the leader of Inhun organization himself? Yunjian had left the tea party with Ce and got into Ce's Lamborghini. Once they got into the car, Ce grabbed Yunjian's wrist. He narrowed his eyes slightly, a strong sense of possessiveness reflected in his starry eyes. "If you meet that kind of person in the future, kill him directly. If anything happens, I'll take care of it for you." His gaze that met with Yunjian's gradually softened. However, his words were still filled with anger. Whether it was Qin Yan at the beginning or Long Ucd this time, they all wanted to steal his woman. Ce had never wanted to wrap a woman up so crazily to prevent others from seeing her beauty. He had hated women since he was young until he met her. Ce, on the other hand, was someone who did not like someone. Once he liked someone, he would never change. Therefore he was really angry just now. His eyebrows were slightly furrowed, and there was an indescribable handsomeness on his handsome face. Suddenly, a pair of cold hands caressed between his brows, smoothing his frown. She could feel her heartbeat as she met Ce's eyes, pressing her lips seductively. She pursed her red lips and leaned closer to him. Ce looked at the red lips that were inches away from him. He swallowed his dry throat and leaned his head forward to kiss those red lips. Yunjian responded to him like dry wood meeting fire. Perhaps in Yunjian's heart, she had already set her mind on him. After the kiss, Yunjian lowered her head, her face flushed red. Chapter 346. After Yun Jian and Ce returned to Longmen City, Qingyu and Su Ziqian arrived shortly after. Qingyu had rented a suite in Longmen City and was staying there for the time being. Not long after she returned to Longmen City with Ce, the two leaders of an Hun group followed them to Longmen City and stayed in the villa as Ce's friends. The empty villa became lively all of a sudden. Dong Ruan did not know Adam and Mo Sen's identities at all, thinking that they were her nephew's friends. Therefore she welcomed them warmly. This morning Yun Jian brought her brother Yun Yi to join Zhang Xiaofeng for a morning run and forced Zhang Xiaofeng to train his body's flexibility. Zhang Xiaofeng was sweating profusely, but in order to learn new moves, he gritted his teeth and persevered. Yun Jian had also pulled her brother Yun Yi's ligament, but Yun Yi did not even cry out in pain. Zhang Xiaofeng and Yun Yi were already sweating from exhaustion. Before they left, Zhang Xiaofeng even called out to Yun Jian, "Master, the masquerade party I mentioned to you last time will be held at 6 o'clock next Saturday night. You must come." Zhang Xiaofeng then turned around and called out to Yun Yi with a cheeky grin, "Hey junior brother, you're coming too. It's a promise? No going back on your word." Since Yun Yi and Zhang Xiaofeng went for a morning run and trained together with Yun Jian, their relationship had gradually warmed up. "How rude of you to call me junior brother?" Yun Yi was not angry. He merely looked at Zhang Xiaofeng's smiling face and looked like he was going to punch Zhang Xiaofeng. "You can't hit me. Hee, I'm leaving." Zhang Xiaofeng mischievously jumped away and ran forward for a long distance. Then he turned around and said goodbye to Yun Jian and Yun Yi. After saying that, Zhang Xiaofeng put his jacket on his shoulder and his 1.8-meter tall figure ran away. How childish. Yun Jian couldn't help but sigh. She turned her head and glanced at Yun Yi. "Brother, let's go home too." "Wait, Xiaojian." Yun Yi stopped smiling and looked at Yun Yi, hesitating for 2 seconds before asking, "Xiaojian, you should know the girl that day, right? That day he was framed and drugged by Chen Yubing and almost fell into her trap. Fortunately, Qingyu came to his rescue. It had been a long time since he last saw her." Yun Yi had not seen Qingyu since that day. Actually, whenever Yun Yi closed his eyes these few days, Qingyu's petite and adorable baby face would appear in his mind. Yun Jian and Qingyu's interaction that day told Yun Yi that Yun Jian obviously knew her, which was why Yun Yi asked, "Mem, I know her." Yun Jian was stunned for a moment before she snapped back to reality. When she turned to look at her brother Yun Yi, there were 2 rosy clouds on his cheeks. "She lives at Huda Harbor on West Street." Yun Jian gave her a specific address and blinked, acting like she knew nothing. "Brother, is there a problem?" Yun Jian acted like an ignorant child and asked Yun Yi. It's nothing." Yun Yi waved his hand and strode forward. In fact, Yun Yi was already planning to look for Qingyu. Yun Jian grinned and followed him with long strides. It happened to be the afternoon of the same day. Qingyu stayed at home alone. She had rented the suite and extravagantly installed a color TV in the living room. The TV was currently playing Calabash Brothers that were popular in 1998. Grandpa. The voice that came from the TV made Qingyu chuckle as she munched on sunflower seeds. It did not match her usual babyface image at all. Ding dong. There was a knock on the door. "Who is it?" Qingyu spat out the sunflower seed shell and called out loudly. By then, Qingyu had spat out melon seed shells all over the floor. The room was a mess, completely unlike the reserved manner a girl should have. Chapter 347. "Stop it, I'm already here to open the door. I'm so pissed, it's the best part of the show. Little Calabash Brothers' grandfather has been taken away." Qingyu mumbled as she ran to open the door in her slippers. Since she was at home, she only wore a dress with sleeves that did not go past her knees. She had thick stockings on her feet and a cute pink jacket on her. As soon as she said that, she opened the door and saw the person standing outside. In an instant, the long-winded words in his mouth stopped. Yun Yi was standing at the door. He wore a thick blue down jacket that accentuated his handsomeness. In spite of it, Qingyu was rooted to the spot when she saw Yun Yi. Her words stopped abruptly as well. Why are you here?" Qingyu shrieked after a moment of silence. Then she realized that she was wearing very casual and revealing clothes. In this cold winter, wearing less would always feel more exposed than others. Of course, Qingyu would only wear this at home. She had thought that it was Yun Jian who was knocking on the door because Yun Jian was the only one who knew that she was staying here. That was why she had boldly opened the door. Who would have thought that the person standing at the door was not Sister Jian but Yun Yi? Once she saw Yunyi, she was reminded of the time when she was nude and Yunyi was detoxified and both of them were hugging each other. Her cheeks glowed red as if blood was splattered on them. She had no choice but to detoxify Yunyi back then. After all, Yunyi was drugged with an aphrodisiac and the effect was rather strong. She could only remove her clothes and warm up Yunyi's body with her body temperature before feeding him the antidote to neutralize the drug. Qing Yu's way of saving people had always been unique as it was her own creation. Later, Yunyi said that she would be responsible for her, so she didn't think much about it. But now, wasn't it because of that Yunyi was standing at the door? "Can I come in?" Yunyi smiled politely. His smile was like the spring breeze, giving people a refreshing feeling as if they had been blown by the spring breeze. No. Qing Yu was suddenly reminded of the clutter in her room that was piled up like a mountain. She reached out and tiptoed to block Yunyi's gaze. "I'm coming in then." Yunyi pretended not to hear Qing Yu's voice. He smiled with pursed lips and walked into Qing Yu's house. Then he saw the messy sofa, melon seeds all over the floor, and all kinds of shoes on the shoe cabinet. "Yunyi, Grandpa. At this moment, the Calabash brothers' shouts could be heard from the TV. Qing Yu blushed, lowering her head as if her little secret was exposed on the spot. Cough. "Your room, it's a little messy. Let me tidy it up for you." Yunyi coughed dryly and his tall silhouette walked towards the messy clutter. Qing Yu, who was standing where she was, lowered her head even more, her cheeks flushing red. A week passed by quickly. In the blink of an eye, it was the day before Zhang Xiaofeng's masquerade party. On Friday, Yun Jian finished school early, which was rare. She replaced Qin Yiru to fetch Xiao Yunju home from his primary school. Chapter 348. Xiao Yunju was now in year 1 of elementary school, the best elementary school in Longmen City, Wanning Elementary School. Wanning Elementary School was the best elementary school in Longmen City, just like Longmen High School where Yun Jian studied and De High School where Yun Yi studied. Yun Jian took the bus and came to the entrance of Wanning Elementary School. She had just finished school and was carrying a shoulder bag. She had not put it down when she ran to the school to fetch Xiao Yunju. Wanning Elementary School was a government-run elementary school and its teachers were of high standards. Those who could enroll in Wanning Elementary School must have come from wealthy families. When the students of Wanning Elementary School went to school, their parents would pick them up from the school's classroom. There was a lot of traffic outside the school gate. In 1998, it was common for parents to pick their children up with bicycles and electric scooters, but those who could ride electric scooters were few and far in between. The number of cars parked in front of the school gate could be counted with one hand. Therefore, some parents who drove cars liked to drive their children into the school to show off. Yun Jian came by bus. She did not like to drive her Ferrari sports car to fetch Xiao Yunju. Children of this age were still in elementary school, but there was already a trend of following the trend in their class. It was especially so for some parents who taught their children to play with their rich classmates since they were young. Playing with their rich classmates was a good starting point for their children. In spite of it, Yun Jian did not want her younger brother to become the kind of person that the children in class would fight to be friends with for his money. Following the group of parents into Wanning Elementary School, Yun Jian soon arrived at Xiao Yunju's class. At the entrance of the classroom, a triangular plaque was hung on the outside of the classroom door. There were a few bright red words printed on it. Class 1-1. This was Xiao Yunju's class. Yun Jian came to the classroom door with her bag slung over her shoulder. Looking into the classroom through the row of glass from the corridor, she saw Xiao Yunju sitting neatly in the first row, his eyes on the teacher who was lecturing on the podium. It was not the end of class yet, but the classroom was already crowded with parents picking their children up. Xiao Yunju was not tall, so he sat at the first table. Yun Jian could clearly see his little head bobbing from the corridor behind. The teacher in the classroom seemed to have said, "Class is over," and the students in little Yunju's class quickly packed their bags. Xiao Yunju poked his head out after packing his bag and found Yun Jian was surprised that Yun Jian was here to pick him up from school, so he ran out with his bag. "Big sister." Xiao Yunju ran into Yun Jian's arms. Yun Jian patted Xiao Yunju's head and took the bag from Xiao Yunju's hands. She asked, "Xiao Yunju, did you listen to the teacher in class today?" Xiao Yunju shook his head and suddenly raised his head stubbornly. Yun Jian suddenly saw a line of tears on his little face. "What's wrong?" Yun Jian suddenly frowned. She squatted down and looked at Xiao Yunju's stubbornly tear-streaked face. "Are you Yunju's big sister?" Suddenly a greeting came from the side. Yun Jian turned around and saw that the female teacher who had been standing on the podium just now was already in front of her. Next to the female teacher was a noble woman who was holding a white and chubby boy's hand. Before Yun Jian could respond to the female teacher, the noble woman next to the female teacher pointed at Yun Jian's nose and scolded her. Chapter 349. Hearing the woman's aggressive words, Xiao Yunju hid behind Yun Jian in fear. He hid behind Yun Jian and only stuck his head out. After the woman finished speaking, Xiao Yunju suddenly stuck his head out and shouted stubbornly, "I didn't. Wang Ba snatched the candy that Si Gij gave me first. I didn't want to give it to him, so he pushed me. That's why I pushed him back." Wang Ba was the chubby boy in the palm of Jin Mei's hand. Yun Jian turned to look at Wang Ba. His chubby body was trembling as he raised his head to look at Xiao Yunju. He seemed to be full of vigor. Looking at Xiao Yunju, he seemed to be cowering. It wasn't hard to tell that before school ended, he had already been taught a lesson by his form teacher, Teacher Lu. "You're so young but you've already learned how to lie." "Ah, my son snatched your candy? Do you think the candy in your hand is made of gold? Will it make you immortal or something? My son doesn't have to worry about food and clothing. Why would he want that lousy candy in your brother's hand?" Wang Ba's mother roared at Xiao Yunju. Teacher Lu was standing between Yun Jian, Xiao Yunju, and Wang Ba's mother. She frowned, but her expression was ugly. Teacher Lu sided with Wang Ba. She frowned at Yun Jian and said, "There's no such thing. I've already asked the students in class. They all said that your brother bullied Wang Ba. I stopped you today because I want you to discipline your brother. Also, I want you to apologize to Wang Ba." "Is it just an apology?" Wang Ba's mother looked up at Yun Jian haughtily with a contemptuous gaze. Everything happened so quickly that no one could react. I didn't. It was Wang Ba who pushed me first." Xiao Yunju was so anxious that he was about to cry. He leaned against Yun Jian, grabbed Yun Jian's hand and shook it. "Big sister, I didn't push him for no reason." Xiao Yunju's black eyes blinked, and tears almost fell from his eyes. Yun Jian was silent for a while. She didn't say anything. She just reached out her hand and gently stroked her brother's hair. Ow. What kind of person was this? Sure enough, a poor child from a poor family was different. You have no manners at all. Wang Ba's mother stared at Xiao Yunju and Yun Jian. After confirming that they were dressed plainly and looked like children from a poor family, she spoke even more fiercely. "Yunju, aren't you going to apologize? If you've done something wrong, you have to apologize." Teacher Lu treated Yunju with her usual attitude as a teacher. Many teachers in the school would treat students with a one-sided view. Sometimes, it would even cause serious psychological trauma to the children. Teacher Lu was such a person. Just as Wang Ba was looking at Yunju smugly, his mother and Miss Lu were standing on his side aggressively. Yunju's expression changed. Yun Jian lowered her eyes. Suddenly she raised her voice. "Enough." Teacher Lu, Wang Ba's mother, and even a group of passing parents were shocked by Yun Jian's shout. Yun Jian pulled Xiao Yunju. She stood in front of Wang Ba's mother and Teacher Lu without showing any signs of weakness. "My brother will admit what he did, but he won't admit what he didn't do." Yun Jian then turned to look at Wang Ba and said fiercely, "Little brat, you know very well whether you're lying or not. If I find out that you're slandering my brother, I'll tear your mouth apart." Chapter 350. Perhaps it was because he had been spoiled since he was young, Wang Ba did not back down out of fear. Instead, he stood up like his mother and raised his voice to Yun Jian. "I'm not spouting nonsense. Humph, it was Yunju who pushed me. He's crazy." As he spoke, he pointed his chubby finger at Yunju and continued to scold and frame him. "I also heard that Yunju is a fatherless brat. Humph, I actually brought candy today. After he pushed me, he snatched my candy away. Slap." Yun Jian stepped forward. She did not care that Wang Ba was a primary school student. She raised her hand and gave Wang Ba a hard slap. The words fatherless pierced Xiao Yunju's heart. Xiao Yunju's eyes, which had been stubbornly holding back tears, instantly turned red. In her previous life, when Yun Jian found Xiao Yunju, their parents were already dead. Xiao Yunju was an orphan at that time and was bullied. Therefore, Xiao Yunju's lack of parents had always been a scar on his heart. No matter who the person was, even if he was only 8 or 9 years old, Yun Jian would not allow him to touch Xiao Yunju's scar. "It hurts. Mommy, it hurts." Oh. After being slapped by Yun Jian, Wang Ba's chubby body fell to the ground with a thud. He instantly howled in pain. "Oh my bao, what's wrong with you?" Wang Ba's mother hurriedly helped her son up in fear. After Wang Ba's mother helped him up, she glared at Yun Jian fiercely. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws at Yun Jian. "You little b***tc. How dare you hit my son? Do you know how precious my son is? My son is nothing compared to that bastard brother of yours." With that, Wang Ba's mother was about to pounce on Yun Jian. Yun Jian grabbed Xiao Yunju and dodged to the side. Wang Ba's mother jumped forward, but because she missed Yun Jian, she fell to the ground like a frog. "Wang Ba's mother, are you okay?" Teacher Lu, who was comforting Wang Ba a moment ago, ran over to comfort Wang Ba's mother. Wang Ba's father was a board member of the school. Not long ago he had donated a batch of books to the school. At that time, the principal had specially instructed her to take good care of Wang Ba. If something were to happen to Wang Ba in school, wouldn't that be terrible? "Ba damn girl, are you courting death?" After Wang Ba's mother was helped up by Teacher Lu, she was in a sorry state. She was instantly enraged and glared at Yun Jian as if she wanted to swallow Yun Jian whole. Surveillance. When Yun Jian saw that Wang Ba's mother had stopped pouncing on her, she looked at Teacher Lu and Wang Ba's mother and sneered. What? Wang Ba's mother and Teacher Lu did not react in time. "Check the surveillance and you will know if your son provoked my brother first or if my brother bullied your son for no reason." Yun Jian looked fearlessly at Wang Ba's mother, who was in a sorry state. She paused and continued, "Don't blame me for not reminding you. If your son framed my brother first, I will definitely kill all of you." Yun Jian's gaze turned menacing at once, sending chills down the spines of those who were present. There were not many surveillance cameras in this era, especially some people who did not even know what surveillance cameras were. However, Wuxia Elementary School's equipment was more advanced. Therefore, every classroom was equipped with a surveillance camera. Chapter 351. Once she heard that they were going to check the surveillance cameras, Wang Ba's mother's slender figure shuddered. To be honest, she did not know if it was her son or Xiao Yunju who made the first move. She had rushed to Miss Lu to ask Yunju to apologize to her son after hearing her son's one-sided explanation just as she arrived at school. Actually, Miss Lu had already reprimanded Xiao Yunju in front of the whole class about Xiao Yunju and Wang Ba's incident. She did not expect him to be so spirited, telling his mother directly after school and asking her to stand up for him. It was just that everyone had forgotten that there were surveillance cameras in the classroom. To be honest, in a school classroom, who would remember if there were any surveillance cameras? Besides, this was not an era where surveillance cameras were everywhere. Normal families would not even install surveillance cameras. Primary schools were different. The children were still young and mischievous. Moreover, the teachers could not keep an eye on their classmates all the time, so they could only install surveillance cameras in each classroom. Wuxia Elementary School was the best primary school in Longmen City, so they could afford to install surveillance cameras. Therefore, every corner of the school was monitored by surveillance cameras. However, the internet was not yet popular in 1998. Even a mobile phone was still a luxury item. Therefore, many people, including the teachers, had completely forgotten about the fact that there were surveillance cameras in the school. Miss Lu snapped out of it at once. She believed that Wang Ba was not lying, so when Yun Jian said that, she went with the flow. Check the surveillance cameras then. In any case, Wang Ba was definitely right. Miss Lu's confidence came from nowhere. When she agreed to Yun Jian's request, her tone was confident and carried an air of maturity that was rich in experience. Isn't this just two kids pushing each other? What's there to check? Besides, didn't all the classmates in the class testify that he pushed my son? How could he be wrong? Wang Ba's mother did not mind talking too much. She stood up and spoke while trembling. After saying that, she kept repeating, "Besides, isn't it just a piece of candy? My family drives cars, why would I care?" "So you're saying that you don't dare to check the surveillance?" Yun Jian sneered. She had already noticed Wang Ba's reaction. Wang Ba's cowering appearance was clearly an expression of a guilty conscience. Yun Jian tugged at Xiao Yunju. She was here today to seek justice for Xiao Yunju. "Oh, I get it now. You're afraid that people will find out that your son stole my brother's candy, so you don't dare to check the CCTV. Yun Jian could tell from Wang Ba's mother's words and actions that this woman was very prideful. Therefore, her voice was very loud, so loud that people who were dozens of meters away could hear her clearly. When Wang Ba's mother saw that everyone was looking at her, she felt embarrassed on the spot. She looked at Yun Jian and raised her head with an arrogant look. Who says I'm scared? Let's go. Yun Jian narrowed her eyes and her lips curled into a cold smile. After a while, the few of them arrived at the school's surveillance room. The teacher who was in charge of the surveillance room looked at Yun Jian and the others in confusion. Then he sat in front of the computer and looked at the surveillance footage for a long time. Finally, he found the footage of Xiao Yunju angrily pushing Wang Ba down. During this time, Wang Ba's hand was accidentally scratched by Xiao Yunju. When Wang Ba's mother saw this, she was instantly enraged. She pointed at Yun Jian and continued to scold her. See, it's your brother who pushed my son. Yun Jian ignored the few of them. She asked the teacher to move away and sat in front of the computer. She reached out her hand and quickly tapped on the keyboard under the shocked gaze of the few people. Then a scene suddenly appeared on the computer screen. Wang Ba walked towards Xiao Yunju who was sitting in his seat. He pointed at the lollipop in Xiao Yunju's hand and asked for it. Xiao Yunju shook his head. Wang Ba rushed forward and pushed Xiao Yunju fiercely. When Xiao Yunju steadied himself, Wang Ba reacted and angrily pushed back. He even accidentally scratched Wang Ba's hand. Chapter 352. Teacher Lu, who was standing beside Wang Ba's mother, turned pale as well. Just now, Miss Lu's expression was the same as how much she believed that Wang Ba and Yunju were at fault. Little brat, it looks like I'm going to tear your mouth apart. While everyone was dumbfounded watching the surveillance footage on the computer, Yun Jian suddenly stood in front of Wang Ba, looking like she was going to tear him into pieces. Mom. I'm scared. Wang Ba was just a kid after all. He was scared by Yun Jian and his heart almost stopped beating. He screamed and jumped into his mother's arms. Actually, Yun Jian was not going to tear his mouth apart. She just wanted to scare this kid who was full of nonsense. Her brother was not bullied. From the video, her brother was pushed and he fought back. Looking at the entire video, her brother had the upper hand. As for the students who lied to the teacher and said that Xiao Yunju was the one who started it, they were probably bought over by Wang Ba. This was not surprising. Most of the students in this school were educated by their parents to climb up the social ladder. The parents who tried their best to send their children to this school just wanted their children to make friends with rich and powerful families. Wang Ba's family seemed to be quite rich. It was not impossible for him to make some promises and get all the students to speak up for him. Wang Ba's mother, however, pulled her son into her arms. Her gaze on Yun Jian turned menacing, as if she was going to devour Yun Jian in the next second. So what if my son wants your brother's candy? You poor kids should feel lucky that my son wants candy. Wang Ba's mother looked at Yun Jian with a righteous attitude. Wang Ba's mother did not know how to write the word repentance. The reason why she dared to yell at Yun Jian and Xiao Yunju was because Yun Jian and Xiao Yunju were not wearing expensive clothes. Usually, rich people like to dress their sons or daughters up well and wear branded clothes from head to toe. Just like her son Wang Ba. However, looking at Yun Jian and Xiao Yunju, their clothes were not bad, but overall they were very plain. There was not a single piece of branded clothing on them. Especially when his son said that Yunju was a wild child without a father. Where could this kind of wild child's family go with money? Bah. Therefore, Wang Ba's mother did not intend to teach Yun Jian a lesson from the very beginning. Apologize. Yun Jian raised her hand and looked at the watch that she had just bought. She said to Wang Ba impatiently. What? Wang Ba's mother opened her mouth wide again on behalf of her son. She looked as if she had seen a new world. I'll give you two options. The first option is to ask your son to apologize to my brother immediately. Yun Jian cast a sidelong glance at her, suddenly looking a little sinister. Teacher Lu was also shocked. Wang Ba's mother, who was beside her, was also affected. She swallowed her lips and pursed her lips that were as red as a chicken's butt. Then she said, Secondly, I'll kill you. Yun Jian suddenly reached out. She took out a butterfly knife from her pocket in front of everyone and threw it at Wang Ba's mother's head. She was so fast that no one could react in time. When they did, Wang Ba's mother's heart was in her mouth. The butterfly knife brushed past Wang Ba's mother's hair and even tore off a lot of her hair. In the end, it bounced off a metal box and landed in Yun Jian's hand. Wang Ba's mother was completely terrified by the scene. Everyone present was dumbfounded when they saw Yun Jian's move. Chapter 353. Yun Jian's action almost scared everyone to death. However, what she said after that made everyone shudder. Was it a joke? Who would play a joke by throwing a butterfly knife at someone's head? However, Wang Ba, his mother, and teacher Lu did not dare to make a sound. This was because they smelled a murderous aura from Yun Jian. Moreover, after the butterfly knife was thrown, Yun Jian was able to use the surrounding environment to bounce it back to her hand. Such a powerful skill could not be a coincidence. So, are you going to apologize now? Yun Jian tilted her head. She held Xiao Yunju's hand and stared at Wang Ba's mother lazily. The threat came out of her mouth naturally. Wang Ba's mother could not help but swallow her saliva. She held Wang Ba's hand and paused for a moment. In the end, due to fear, she pushed her son and quickly fell to the ground. Wang Ba's mother gave her son a shove and glanced at Yun Jian fearfully, looking like she had yet to recover from her initial shock. Apologize. Wang Ba's mother was someone who bullied the weak and feared the strong. She was scared out of her wits by Yun Jian's butterfly knife. Although her son was important, her face and her son's dignity were definitely more important than her. Wang Ba was also scared out of his wits. After all, he was only a first grader. When Yun Jian threatened him just now, Wang Ba was already scared out of his wits. So sorry. After being pushed out by his mother, Wang Ba's low voice came out of his mouth like a mosquito. Xiaozhu, can you hear his voice? Yun Jian squatted down and looked at Xiao Yunju's pink face. She could not help but stroke his head and ask softly. Sister, I can't hear him. He's speaking so softly. Xiao Yunju covered his ears with all his might. His pink face instantly became round and he even made a face at Wang Ba. Stupid Xiao Yunju you. Wang Ba saw Xiao Yunju making a face at him and immediately stood up. He clenched his fat fist and wanted to threaten Xiao Yunju but was covered by Yun Jian's words. Did you hear that? My brother said he didn't hear what you said. Yun Jian turned her head sideways and looked at Wang Ba from the corner of her eyes. She played with the butterfly knife in her hand and revealed an evil smile. Yun Jian's actions made Wang Ba's mother and the others' hearts tremble. Wang Ba's mother, in particular, was already chilled to the bone when she saw Yun Jian playing with the butterfly knife. Shuddering, she smacked her son's head. Louder. Say it. Wang Ba's mother was afraid that the butterfly knife in Yun Jian's hand would fly out of Yun Jian's hand and fly towards her again. She was so scared that she quickly urged her son. It was the first time Wang Ba's mother had patted his head so hard. He felt so wrong that he was so scared that tears rolled down his face and he started to stutter. Wang Ba looked at Xiao Yunju and shouted, sorry. He had never been humiliated like this before. If I find out that you bullied my brother again, you'll have to deal with it yourself. Yun Jian sneered. She did not even look at Wang Ba. Instead, she held Xiao Yunju's hand and walked out of the surveillance room without looking back. Wang Ba's mother heaved a sigh of relief. She trembled as she pulled her son up. She did not even have time to greet Teacher Lu and ran towards the door. Of course, she was not satisfied. However, Wang Ba's mother knew that she was no match for Yun Jian. Chapter 354. Yun Jian held Xiao Yunju's hand and walked out of the school. They passed by a large patch of flowerbeds and a rockery that Wanning-yi Elementary School had just built. Wanning-yi Elementary School was definitely the most scenic in Longmen City. It had to be said that Wanning-yi Elementary School occupied a large area and it was not too close to the school building from the school gate. There were many flowerbeds for people to admire as they walked. The school leaders had even built a rockery to enhance the school's scenic view. At this time, somewhere in the rockery, the fountain was still spraying water. The water splashed up and down, forming a round hollow circle, which looked particularly beautiful. Yun Jian held Xiao Yunju's hand as they walked out and soon arrived at the school gate. Suddenly, Yun Jian caught sight of a snack shop near the school gate. She pressed her lips together and bent down to ask Xiao Yunju, Xiaozhu, do you want to buy some snacks? Can I jia? Xiao Yunju was delighted when he heard that Yun Jian wanted to bring him to buy snacks. He stood up and looked up at Yun Jian, blinking his eyes adorably. Of course. Yun Jian held Xiao Yunju's hand and walked to the snack shop. This was a small shop with old decorations. Most of the things sold inside were snacks that children like to eat, such as spicy strips that cost a few cents a pack. The shopkeeper was a very pretty lady who looked about 18 or 19 years old. She must be the shopkeeper's daughter. When the lady saw Yun Jian walking over with Xiao Yunju's hand, she stood up quickly and greeted them. Hello, do you want to buy anything? Since Yun Jian and the rest had gone to the surveillance room, the students at the school gate had already been taken home by their parents when they left the school gate. Hence, the shop was empty, leaving only Yun Jian and Xiao Yunju walking over. Jie, I want spicy strips. Xiao Yunju grabbed Yunjian's hand and shook it excitedly when he saw the big bag of way-long spicy strips at the front. No, spicy strips are junk food. Don't even think about it. Yunjian flicked Xiao Yunju's forehead and said softly with a smile. Jie, why do you say the same thing as Si Gij? Xiao Yunju pouted unhappily and looked away, blurting out. Yunjian was dumbfounded when she heard him. So you said the same thing too? Then I'll buy 3 lollipops. One for Jie and one for me. This one is for Si Gij. Xiao Yunju quickly reached out and took 3 lollipops from the shelf. He held them in his hand and looked at Yunjian with his small eyes blinking. Aha! Yunjian really wanted to ask Xiao Yunju why he kept mentioning Ce, but she swallowed her words. Just as she walked out of the shop with Yunju after paying the bill, 3 menacing silhouettes approached them from the opposite side. They were Wang Ba's mother, and the others. As for the other person, he was a middle-aged man. He was tall and sturdy, standing at 1.9 meters tall. He was plump and strong, and the muscles on his arms could be seen through his clothes. This middle-aged man looked exactly like Wang Ba, so it wasn't hard to tell that they were related. Chapter 355. Yunjian felt goosebumps all over her body when she heard Wang Ba's mother speaking to the middle-aged man with her soft and coquettish voice. The middle-aged man sized up Yunjian with a sarcastic look. He even looked at her as if she was a beggar. Are you the one who bullied my woman and my son? The middle-aged man looked at Yunjian and sneered. Yunjian held Xiao Yunju's hand. She raised her head slightly and looked at the middle-aged man. She smiled but did not say anything. The middle-aged man was Wang Ba's father, Wang Wuguei. Wang Wuguei was an employee of a large corporation. He had been working there for a few years and had been promoted a few times. He felt that he was already a big boss. Therefore, he liked to observe people's clothes when he looked at them. He was not afraid when he saw that Yunjian was dressed plainly and Xiao Yunju did not have a single branded item on him. Hey! Yunjian crossed her arms and pursed her lips. She smiled as if she was looking at a fool. The 3 of them were indeed a family. The first thing they did when they came up was to check out their clothes. Yunjian saw through their actions clearly. What are you laughing at? Wang Wuguei rolled up his sleeves and was about to walk towards Yunjian when he was stopped by Wang Ba's mother. Hubby, you can't go. This girl is strange. She seems to know some martial arts. Wang Ba's mother stopped Wang Wuguei and stood beside Yunjian. Now that her husband was there, Wang Ba's mother did not seem to be afraid of Yunjian. Wang Ba's mother had also forgotten about what happened in the surveillance room. She came over and lifted her head to meet Yunjian's eyes, her gaze distant. Then Wang Ba's mother suddenly pointed at a Volkswagen Santana car that was parked not far away and showed it off to Yunjian. Hee little girl, you won't give up until you see the coffin. Do you see that? That's my car. Do you have a car at home? Young people nowadays like to act like they're rich and powerful, but they're actually very sloppy at home. This young person was the one that Wang Ba's mother used to describe Yunjian. Wang Ba's mother was not stupid. She did not want her husband to fight with Yunjian. She followed Yunjian here because she wanted to take revenge. She wanted to make fun of Yunjian. Wang Ba's mother thought that young people nowadays would act like they were rich if they were poor. To Wang Ba's mother, Yunjian was one of them. Wang Ba's mother's husband, Wang Wuguei, actually had quite a high position in the company. After all, there were probably only a handful of people in the family who could afford to drive a car. Usually Wang Wuguei and his family would drive this Santana everywhere to show off. At the end of the day, their Volkswagen Santana was bought from New Cruise. Seeing that Yunjian did not reply, Wang Ba's mother thought that she was stunned after hearing that the Volkswagen Santana belonged to her family. Wang Ba's mother was even more proud of herself. She even boasted, "Hey, do you know the famous New Cruise? They're the best car marketing company. My family's car was bought from New Cruise." Chapter 356. Ever since the auto show, New Cruise's name had risen in the industry. Zhang Jifan had been so busy lately that he did not even have the time to hire helpers. Yunjian was only in charge of the bigger matters while Zhang Jifan was in charge of the smaller matters. Of course, she would make a trip to New Cruise during the weekend. However, Yunjian was amused when she heard her company's name from Wang Ba's mother's mouth. It was her company. Now that someone had bought a car from her company, how could she show off in front of her? Oh. Yunjian held back her laughter. It was the first time she was so interested to know what Wang Ba's mother's expression would be if she knew that her car was bought from her company. Have you heard of New Cruise or not? That's New Cruise. My family's car was bought there. But that's true. How would a child from a poor family like you have the chance to know about all these? Wang Ba's mother's tone softened as she spoke. She tilted her head slightly and looked at Yun Jian with an indescribable disdain. Sister, what's New Cruise? Can it be eaten? Xiao Yunju was indeed a child. He lifted his head and shook it, the lollipop still in his mouth. Upon hearing Xiao Yunju's words, Wang Ba's mother was even more certain that Yun Jian and Xiao Yunju were children from a poor family. Wang Ba's mother glared at Yun Jian and continued to attack her with what she thought was a satisfying way of venting her anger when she recalled how Yun Jian had humiliated her in the surveillance room. Yo, look, your brother doesn't even know what New Cruise is? Is it true that you don't know either? Aha, a child from a poor family. Just based on this you can't compare to us. You're ignorant. Wang Ba's mother seemed to have seized the opportunity to insult Yun Jian. She shouted at the top of her lungs as if she was afraid that the passers-by would not know what was going on. Just as Wang Ba's mother finished her sentence, the sound of an emergency brake came from the road. Vroom, screech, the sports car's motor was very loud. It could be heard from far away. The sports car seemed to be moving very fast. By the time the crowd reacted, the sports car was already parked on a downhill road beside them. In 1998, even cars were considered rare luxury goods, not to mention sports cars. Wang Ba's mother and the rest turned around immediately when they heard the sound. Wang Ba's mother even wanted to use the sports car that appeared out of nowhere to brag to Yun Jian so that she would be speechless and feel even more embarrassed. Yun Jian looked at the sports car that appeared out of nowhere as well and squinted her eyes in surprise. Hey, you've never seen it before? Do you know what a sports car is? Wang Ba's mother pointed at the sports car that had appeared out of nowhere, wanting to boast about her knowledge. Xiao Yunju suddenly let go of Yun Jian's hand. He jumped excitedly towards the young man who came down from the Lamborghini sports car while shouting, "Brother CE!" CE stepped out of the Lamborghini sports car with his long legs and his flawless handsome face was revealed. Seeing Xiao Yunju running towards him, he quickly carried Xiao Yunju. Wang Ba's mother and Wang Wugue were dumbfounded. Chapter 357. What was going on? When Wang Wugue and Wang Ba's mother saw the sports car that appeared out of nowhere, their first reaction was envy from the bottom of their hearts. Their family could afford a car, but it didn't mean that they could afford a sports car. Especially in this era, how many families in the city could afford a car? Moreover, a sports car's fuel consumption was incomparable to a car's. In other words, even if Wang Ba's family could afford a sports car, even if someone gave them a sports car for free, they wouldn't be able to afford a sports car based on its fuel consumption. However, they could afford a car, but other families didn't. Based on this, Wang Ba's mother had already bragged to many people. However, when she saw the high-end and domineering Lamborghini, although she couldn't tell what kind of car it was, she could tell that it was a sports car. Wang Wugue and Wang Ba's mother naturally envied her from the bottom of their hearts. Wang Ba's mother actually wanted to show off her knowledge in front of Yun Jian so that she would think that she was the kind of person who could afford a sports car. However, she didn't expect Xiao Yunju to recognize the young man who drove the sports car. When she looked at CE again, he was already carrying Xiao Yunju and walking towards Yun Jian. What's going on? CE frowned. His cold and handsome face twitched as he glanced at Wang Ba's family from the corner of his eyes like a hawk's. He stood in front of Yun Jian and asked, "Nothing, it's just a bunch of flies blowing in my ear." Yun Jian waved her hand as though she was trying to chase away flies. Flies? CE raised his eyebrows and said. Wang Ba's mother sucked in a sharp breath when she saw CE's face. When she saw CE speak, she thought that he would say something fair that she wanted to hear. However, she didn't expect CE to rub Xiao Yunju's head. His handsome face twitched and his brows twitched. Since it's just a few annoying flies, it's better to kill them. On the surface he looked friendly, but the words he said were even more terrifying than Yun Jian's actions. Wang Ba's mother, Wang Wugue, and Wang Ba stood at the side and listened with cold sweat on their backs. Why were the young people who came today more barbaric than the other? Due to the awkwardness just now, Wang Ba's family didn't want to stay any longer. They turned around and wanted to run. At this moment, they heard a sinister voice came from behind them. "I've memorized your license plate. From now on, New Cruise's business with you." Through mother's license plate, On's license plate, the owner's names and so on. That was why Yun Jian's mother's. What? Wang Ba's father wanted to run away with his tail between his legs. Wang Wugui's muscular body stood beside Yun Jian and said with a ferocious expression, "Why should new crews listen to you? Who do you think you are? You think you're going to stop doing business with us just because you said so? Because she's new cruise's director." Unknowingly, there was another high-end Audi parked by the road. Zhang Jifan got out of the car and heard Wang Wugui's words. He walked over angrily and blocked Yun Jian's path as he spoke to Wang Wugui. Chapter 358. In spite of it, Zhang Jifan's words did not seem to have any effect on Wang Wugui when they reached him. Instead, Wang Wugui pointed at Yun Jian and told Zhang Jifan, "TSK. You're saying she's new cruise's director? Are you F***ing kidding me? Look at this girl. How does she look like new cruise's director? She's dressed in rags, but new cruise's director doesn't look like that. She should at least have 3 branded items on her." These were just the images Wang Wugui came up with for new cruise's director. What Wang Wugui meant was to refute that Yun Jian was not new cruise's director. TSK, what a joke. Who was he kidding? This girl dressed in cheap clothes was new cruise's director? If she was new cruise's director, he would be the country's general manager. Yun Jian was not upset by Wang Wugui's words. She did not even look at him. Instead, she turned to Zhang Jifan and pointed at the Santana sedan's license plate, telling Zhang Jifan directly, "Remember the license plate number. Block all information about him when we get back. New Cruise will never do any business with him in the future." "Yes, Sister Jian." Zhang Jifan nodded and ignored Wang Wugui. She spoke as if she meant it. Actually, Wang Wugui's eyelids were already twitching when he saw how confident Yun Jian was. Could it be that this little girl was really... Wang Wugui was startled by his own thoughts. In the end, he took his wife and son and hurriedly left this place. "What's the matter?" Yun Jian finally asked Zhang Jifan. "Sister Jian, Wanda Corporation invited you to a party at 6 tomorrow night. Are you going?" Zhang Jifan asked. Zhang Jifan was rich now and had bought a branded car, but he had yet to buy a phone. He had probably been too busy recently, so busy that he did not even have time to buy one. Therefore, Zhang Jifan drove over to ask Yun Jian. He had gone to Yun Jian's school, but there was no one there. It was also Xiao Yunju's school's dismissal time. Zhang Jifan was smart enough to come here. He was only there to ask Yun Jian. After Yun Jian answered him, he had to leave and rush to his work. There was no time to lose. Yun Jian squinted her eyes. Wanda Corporation. Wasn't Wanda Corporation Zhang Xiaofeng's father's company? What a coincidence. Zhang Xiaofeng had reminded her repeatedly that she had to attend the masquerade party tomorrow night. Now, Zhang Jifan was telling her that Wanda had invited her as the representative of New Cruise. "I'll go," Yun Jian answered almost immediately. Zhang Jifan looked like he was saying, "That's great." As long as Yun Jian was willing to go, he did not have to do it on her behalf anymore. He could continue working on his own matters. "Oh, okay, Sister Jian. I'll leave this to you then," Zhang Jifan said and waved at Xiao Yunju before he left. Thus there were only Yun Jian, Xiao Yunju and Si left. "Si Gij, this lollipop is for you." Xiao Yunju was the first to break the silence, passing a strawberry-flavored lollipop to Ce with a drooping face like he was anticipating a compliment. Looking at the red strawberry-flavored lollipop, Yun Jian's lips tugged into a smirk. This color matched Ce. He probably wouldn't accept it, would he? In spite of it, Ce accepted Xiao Yunju's lollipop and even praised Xiao Yunju with a rub on his head before he opened the lollipop package and popped it into his mouth. Yun Jian was also stuffing Xiao Yunju's lollipop into her mouth. Her mouth was slightly agape as she watched Ce stuff the strawberry-flavored lollipop into his mouth. Did he really eat it? Yun Jian was stupefied. The lollipop dangled by her lips as her jaw dropped. "You've been staring at my lollipop for a long time. Since you like the taste of my lollipop so much, let's change." Chapter 359. Yun Jian's heart thumped wildly when she saw Ce actually stuffing the lollipop she had already eaten into his mouth. She had never imagined that he would actually eat the lollipop she had already licked. Yun Jian was still holding the lollipop Ce had already eaten. She was stunned. "You're not eating it?" Ce raised his eyebrows when he saw that Yun Jian didn't put the lollipop in her mouth. "You've already eaten it." "I don't want it." Yun Jian frantically stuffed the lollipop back into Siyi's hand as a faint blush crept across her cheeks. Siyi turned his face sideways so that his perfect profile was facing Yun Jian. He reached out and stuffed the strawberry-flavored lollipop he had just eaten into his mouth as well. His eyes narrowed into slits as he smiled wickedly. Yun Jian's eyelids twitched twice. Her cheeks suddenly flushed red as she stood rooted to the ground and gritted her teeth. Then she said angrily to Siyi, "You're really shameless." The scene of Siyi stuffing 2 lollipops into his mouth at the same time was simply indescribable. Especially when she knew that one of the lollipops was one that she had eaten before, Yun Jian felt even more embarrassed at the thought. "I'm only shameless in front of you." Siyi slowly held the 2 lollipops in his hand. His handsome face faced Yun Jian as he stared fixedly at her with his mesmerizing eyes. "Big brother Siyi, what do you mean by shameless?" Xiao Yunju looked suspiciously at Yun Jian and Siyi's actions. He shook his head from side to side as he asked with the lollipop in his mouth. A child with a curiosity that didn't fully understand was like a million whys and always had endless questions to ask. "Of course it's to praise your big brother Siyi," Yun Jian replied to Xiao Yunju before Siyi could. Yun Jian hadn't expected Xiao Yunju to ask Siyi this question. She didn't want Xiao Yunju to know that she was scolding Siyi, so she hurriedly spoke first. "Oh." Xiao Yunju shook his little head as though he understood what she meant. Yun Jian let out a small sigh of relief. However, at this moment Xiao Yunju's tender voice was heard again. He raised his head to look at Siyi and revealed his adorable little face. He praised Siyi earnestly, "Big brother Siyi, you're really shameless." After that, Yunju looked up at Siyi like he was waiting for a reward, blinking from time to time. Cough cough. Yun Jian couldn't help but laugh out loud. However, she quickly stopped herself and coughed to cover up the awkwardness. As expected, Siyi's face instantly darkened. "Big brother Siyi, why are you so unhappy? Did Xiao Yunju say something wrong?" Xiao Yunju blinked as he looked at Siyi and then at Yun Jian strangely. "You didn't say anything wrong. Your big brother Siyi is very happy." Yun Jian held back her laughter. She held Xiao Yunju's hand and happily strode forward. It was only when she was with Siyi and Xiao Yunju that it was the most fun. At the same time, Yun Jian dared to open her heart and laugh out loud. Siyi suddenly walked around Xiao Yunju and leaned over to Yun Jian's ear. He gently exhaled and said in a mellow voice with a hint of magnetism, "See how I'll deal with you." These words were extremely flirtatious, but Yun Jian didn't feel the slightest bit repulsed. Her ears tingled and she reached out to push Siyi away. Xiaozhu, let's go. Ignore your big brother Siyi." Yun Jian grabbed Xiao Yunju's hand and took 2 steps forward. Chapter 360. Brother Siyi, you're so shameless. When Xiao Yunju saw Siyi reach out to grab Yun Jian's wrist, he hurriedly raised his small hands and clapped twice as a form of applause. Xiao Yunju seemed to automatically categorize this as a compliment. He clapped his hands because his teacher had taught him that when praising others, he had to clap his hands. When he saw Siyi reach out to grab Yun Jian's wrist, he clapped out of habit to praise her. Siyi's face was terrifyingly dark. He grabbed Yun Jian's wrist with one hand and wrapped his other arm around Xiao Yunju's waist. He carried him single-handedly and walked towards the Lamborghini sports car. When he threw Xiao Yunju and Yun Jian into the car, Siyi started the engine. The car was like a bolt of lightning as it sped away in the blink of an eye. When they reached home, Xiao Yunju carried his small school bag and went to the study on the first floor to do his homework. Siyi, on the other hand, held Yun Jian's hand and went upstairs. The moment they left Xiao Yunju's field of vision, Siyi pinned her against the wall with his height advantage. Yun Jian squeezed her body, but was still pinned against the wall by Siyi. She asked, "What are you doing?" "Of course, I'm doing what a shameless person should do." Siyi smiled. He raised his thick brows and pressed his tall body against hers. Yun Jian was kissed passionately, but she gradually lost herself in it. They only let go of each other when they were almost out of breath. "Be my woman." Siyi hugged Yun Jian as they stood in the corner. He declared domineeringly. His words were not a greeting but an affirmation. She buried her head in Siyi's chest and took in his light, fresh scent. She couldn't help but nod her head gently. Siyi, on the other hand, wore a charming smirk. This was considered as establishing their identities. Yun Jian nestled in Siyi's arms. Her eyes were downcast, but the faint blush on her cheeks revealed her current emotions. After Yun Jian agreed, Siyi hugged her even tighter. He had always been a man who dared to take responsibility for his actions. Back then he hated women, so he had never planned to find a woman and had never considered this possibility. However, Ce could guarantee that the person he approved of was definitely not just a playful relationship between a man and a woman. He wanted to pursue Yun Jian with the premise of marriage. Yun Jian did not know why she agreed to Ce's request. When she came to her senses, she had already agreed to his request. However, Yun Jian didn't regret it. The next day in the evening, the sky turned dark quickly in winter. By 5 o'clock in the afternoon, the sky had already begun to turn dark. At 6 o'clock in the evening, Zhang Xiaofeng's father, Wanda Company, would be holding a masquerade party. The reason why it was called a masquerade party was that the people who entered the party would usually dress up repeatedly before going. Naturally, makeup was essential. Of course, they also needed to wear a decent gown. Zhang Xiaofeng had already prepared the gowns for Yun Jian and Yun Yi. Yun Yi wore a black suit. Yun Jian also wore the evening gown that Zhang Xiaofeng had asked Chen Sini to send to her. Yun Jian even tied her hair up and put on light makeup. It was very light makeup. It looked as if she had never put on makeup before. However, one had to admit that Yun Jian's skin was very good. Her skin was fair, and her lips were red and tender. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.